need to sell some of them. You're wasting all your time and money on models. Paint what you have.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Model Club TV episode 27.
27.
Where's your fingers? You always do fingers.
2.
Oh, jeez.
7.
All right. As always, I'm Jason Walker. This is my lovely co-host, Scott Johansson. How are you, Scott?
I am lovely. I'm great. You?
Oh, I'm lovely as well. This episode, we are doing a 3D printing primer episode. Just a quick introduction of things. We have Jamie Sion with us, 3D printer extraordinaire, former Garage Kit guy, still Garage Kit guy, sort of, and Todd Powell from Escape Hatch Hobbies to do some little 3D printing talk, kind of alleviate some fears and just do some general discussion. How's that sound?
Yeah, and we'll probably do a little bit too.
Yeah, I think so.
Prior.
So anyway,
who knows?
Let's start out with our giveaway. We had some great UFO stories in the comments, so we are going to pull for the UFO Roswell Alien Tribute Kit from Paul Gill. And here we are. Brian Clark.
Oh,
Your buddy
no.
Brian.
Oh, no.
Ah, my fellow teaching buddy. Brian Clark, you have won the Roswell. We'll get that out to you. Congratulations.
Oh, no.
Dude, he's going to kick your ass one day. That'll be a good fight, too.
Why
He's a
will it
big
be
guy.
a good fight?
Because it'll beat your ass. Anyway,
So that's a good fight?
Yes.
A good fight like nobody really wins.
Yeah, no.
So I want to do something. I'd like you to do something for our good friend, Mr. Clark, because you
Okay.
have the piece. If you could go upstairs and to your drawer and get enough tin foil to fit that big head of his, and so he can contact the mothership when he gets this and say they're on to us. Okay. So there
Will
you
do.
go.
I will do that. We have another giveaway this episode. Scott, would you like to introduce that giveaway?
I would. So my good friend Rob Madison, our good friend Rob Madison.
I was gonna say he's mine too. Sometimes.
He's mine more. Anyway,
That's
he was in my area. He's got some relatives that live about 20 minutes from me. And so he came and spent Saturday afternoon with Jason and I at my lovely abode here. And he brought us some goodies. And one of the goodies he brought us to give away is it's a Patreon that I turned him onto, and we're going to have the information right here. Okay. And this guy gets $5 a month from me and now Rob. And you have access to all his files. And this is the same guy that did the stuff that Michigan Toy and Soldier was selling on their table at Wonderfest as well this year. And when I found this out, I was like, hey, this is kind of sketchy what these guys are doing. Until I read that this guy don't care if you print them and sell them. He just don't want you to give away the files. So anyway, one of the little kits he had, and because, of course, my love for the cartoon stuff, he's got a whole set of Wacky Racers cars in there. And so when Rob saw that, Rob's like, yeah, I got to join this guy's Patreon. And Rob's been printing these up matchbox size. And I'm going to slowly bring these up here. And so these are the Slag Brothers in the Boulder Mobile. And I'm sorry, it's a little blurry. Here's a picture of the built one that actually Rob gave me a built and painted one. It's up here with my other stuff. And we're going to give this away to anybody that wants the Slag Brothers. And there you go.
So we have a rule change.
But we do have a rule change.
Because
We've actually had a lot of people bring it to our attention that a couple of people have won more than once.
Yes.
And we want everybody, to have a chance to win. So we're going to go, 2 drawings?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's try that.
So if you win, Brian Clark, haha. No, I'm just kidding.
From this point forward. So Brian is our first person.
Brian is our first cutoff guy. But yeah, if you win, we got to wait a couple of drawings before you win again. Let's give other people a chance. We don't want to discourage anybody, but we want everyone to feel like they're included. So
Yeah. So sit out 2 contests, 2 giveaways before you enter again. We appreciate everybody who's entered, and but we do want to give more people a chance. So
right. And again, I want to thank Paul Gill, Mark Van Tyne for the alien
absolutely
bust. And again, I'll say it again, Paul's been really supportive of what we do. And I appreciate it personally, and I
so
know
do I.
Jason does too.
So cool. That's our giveaway.
So, what are we going to do for this Slags?
For this giveaway, I want you to, in the comments down below, comment your favorite cartoon of all time. Which brings us to news and reviews, because we're going to talk about cartoons.
We are?
Do your do. All right, yes. So news and reviews. I've actually had time to watch some things on the TV, and they were both cartoons.
On the TV, huh?
Yeah, on the TV.
Not on the garage door. On the TV. I watched them on the TV.
The first was Godzilla Singular Point, which is a Godzilla anime. This is the second Godzilla anime. I thought the first one was rather boring, and I didn't much care for it. This I liked a lot. And I don't think you'll like it. If you don't like anime, you're not going to like it, because it's very anime. But I think it's amazing, and it's well worth the watch. I think it's like 13 episodes, and they're about a half hour each. It's kind of like a mix of Shin Godzilla and a bunch of other Godzillas. It should be called Jet Jaguar Singular Point because it's more about Jet Jaguar than it is about Godzilla. And I love the Jet Jaguar design for this. It's really, really cool. It's kind of clanky, and they kind of downscale a lot of the monsters as well.
Kind of an Iron Giant looking.
Yeah, it's cool. It's the way they handle it's really, really cool. And there's a guy inside piloting for part of it, and then I don't want to ruin any more of it. But the creature designs, they've redone everything for this, and there's a really cool story I think that goes with it. Well worth the watch. Check out Godzilla Singular Point. It is a Netflix series. It's on there. Really well done. I think some of the creatures are really cool and deserve models. So, and I know I've seen some of the Godzilla out there, but I want a Jet Jaguar kit really, really, really bad. And he kind of goes through different stages in this, so there would be cool customizing kits maybe for it, or parts or something. But
called Jet Jag.
Jet Jag
for short.
Jet Jag. JJ?
Jet Jag. Jag. I think Jag's a Chicago thing.
Yeah,
You're
Jag
a
is
Jag. He's a fucking Jag.
I was just going to say, Jag is the quintessential Chicago word. Such a Jag. But no, check out Godzilla Singular Point. And the other cartoon, I just finished it last night, is the new Masters of the Universe Revelations series on Netflix. And I know hits me right here because Masters of the Universe was, you know how Scott loves his cartoons. He-Man was my show when I was a kid, and it was okay. There were parts I really liked, and other parts I was like, what the, like, it just, it's a way a lot. It's, you know, girl power, which is and I don't mean that in a horrible, I hate women way. I mean that in a
great. Shanna Worthling's going to tear your fucking
have
picture
everybody
up.
going after me again.
Okay.
After the dog thing,
Get
we'll
him,
talk
Shanna,
about that later.
Get him. But
it's like, everything is redone to have the men kind of take a step back, and they do this in this for part of it. It's worth watching. Check it out. I really don't like Mark Hamill as the voice of Skeletor. I hate it, to be honest. I hate it because it just sounds like Joker, or it sounds like any other villain voice that Mark Hamill has done.
You're a Luke Skywalker. Woman, dog hating. Okay, I'm just,
make that list. Keep it going. So yeah, I think it's worth watching. There's some cool things they do, but that's it. That's where we're at. So on to other stuff. News and reviews. Wonderfest's hotel booking is open, I guess, for reservations. So that block is up. So if you want to book your room for Wonderfest, Scott, when is it? I totally forgot.
June 4th and 5th.
Okay. Yeah, June 4th and 5th. Check it out.
Get 2022.
Yep. Get your
It's,
booking now.
at the time of this recording, 309 days, 4 hours, 45 minutes, and 50 seconds.
I know you didn't do that math. That's the timer on the website.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. And the next thing I found on the internet for me, I don't know, we'll get to yours in a second, is Killer Kits and Dave Nicholson. This goes right into what Scuzzfink was talking about. He kept saying, why aren't any Jasons or 80s horror movies or any of that stuff? Killer Kits has a ton, it looks like, of really cool 80s slasher type stuff. And he has this new Jason Voorhees coming out. And check that out. I think it's really cool. He's got Evil Ed. He's got Leatherface. He's got Freddy. Bunch of really cool things. Phantasm we talked about before. Some cool pieces. Some really nice busts. So again, Dave Nicholson, Killer Kits. Check them out. And coming up after that, I wanted to share a build-up that was sent in. I've seen it online, and it makes me angry every time I see it. From David Stan of Stan Arts and his lovely wife, Laura. This is his Han Solo on Tauntaun, painted. And we'll show more in the users gallery later on. The viewers gallery later on. This thing is very, very well painted. I don't even want to paint mine now because I know it's not going to look like that, and it will bother me forever. So kudos to David for an amazing paint job. But the bigger reason I wanted to show this is he's releasing a Luke Skywalker. If you want to switch
Luke
out,
Skywalker. We just covered that.
I don't hate Luke Skywalker. I hate
Okay.
Mark Hamill's voice.
All right, sorry.
But he's going to have a Luke Skywalker, switch it out, available. If you wanted to do Luke instead of Han, you could do that. So that's coming. He's also looking for commission work. So if you need something painted, check out Stan Arts, and he's an amazing painter, amazing sculptor, and please check into him. Scott, what you got?
And they're good people.
Oh, they're awesome people.
They're awesome people. I'd like to get them to Wonderfest. I hope they can come to Wonderfest and people can see some of his work because it's really nice.
Scott, what you got?
I have the latest release from Monsters from the Woods, John Deere, sculpted by Jeff Yeager, Boris Karloff as the Mummy. And here's some photos of the sculpt from Jeff. And believe it or not, I got mine today.
Oh, cool.
And of course, it's never
It
but
gets
it's
blown
nice
out.
size. I always forget how big quarter scale is till I get one.
Yeah.
You know. And the pictures actually will show it better, but there's a scarab and on the base here a little bit, and of course a great Karloff likeness, which Jeff probably did while he was sleeping. Believe it or not, of all the Karloff stuff that's out there, there's not a lot of mummy busts, I don't think, that are of Karloff. So
There's a
this
couple,
one I really
not
like.
many. You're right.
I know Brokaw did one that was beautiful with a pyramid base,
Yeah.
and that they show at the beginning of the movie with the mummy on it. And that's like one of the favorite pieces I have. So if I find a picture, we'll put it up here. But so that's really all I've gotten.
Yeah, it's been a
because
slow month.
I've lost my mind. 3D printing in the last few weeks.
We'll get into that in about 2 seconds in the workbench. I have nothing else. I have not bought anything this month because I had nothing but bad stuff happen to my house that had to be fixed. So it's been fun since the last episode. And that, like you said, brings us to the workbench. Scott, you've been workbenching?
Sort of, yes.
Do you have a picture of your workbench this time?
Here you go, right here.
Holy cow.
And this is a picture of the 3D printing area, printing and curing area. And I have to thank my co-host, came over and helped me start to set it up.
Note to
And
self, he
as you
thanked
were
me
over-
for something. Holy cow.
And while he was over, we didn't finish setting it up, but you were over Saturday, and you got to see it kind of finished
Mm-hmm.
and organized. And, I got a good little work area for doing this right now. And then you also got to see my temporary resin casting area cleaned for the first time.
First
and here's
time
a shot
out,
of
yes.
that. Okay. because we do have some small projects getting ready to go there that we've shown before and talked about. So I've been busy. And one of the things I'm doing is I'm casting every cool cartoon character I can find.
Printing, not casting.
Printing, yes.
Yeah.
And here's a few of them: Foghorn Leghorn, Tasmanian Devil, Daffy Duck, Yosemite Sam, which I think you showed
Yeah, I
last
showed it
time.
last time. So you are in
And
cartoon heaven.
I am in cartoon heaven. I just bought an STL file of like all the Looney Tunes characters on one thing, which is it's 62 pieces, so it's insane.
So when will that be printed?
I don't know.
Let's put a time. We still have
it's-
not finished our garage kits that we were supposed to do in this year. So
No,
you
but
have 3
I'll
to
tell
go.
ya.
I have 2.
And I've got this little Tasmanian Devil here, and I've got some better pictures of it. I think we'll put up here, but these things are so cool. I do. I want to just start sanding on them, primering them,
Yeah.
and throw a quick bullshit paint job on them just to shut everybody up. So we'll see. 3D printing is. Oh, and you know what else I did? So we've mentioned Tony Cipriano's digital sculpting class many times.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to mention it again. I don't know why. It's Tony, and he's a great guy. But in the sculpting class, you get start to finish. You watch him sculpt something in ZBrush digitally, and it's really cool. If you can stand to listen to him for 12 hours or so, it's really cool. But and kidding aside, Tony's actually really easy to listen to, and just really laid back. And so I finished my last episode, and with the class, they include the STL file to print the piece that he's sculpting. So, because I didn't want to waste a lot of resin on this, I did print the snow bears. You
Aw.
can't really make them out, but I did print them, and it's a miniature. Look, it's a miniature.
Yeah, that's cool.
Called a miniature. And I sent it to Tony, and I said, "Yeah, I didn't want to put a lot of resin into this thing, but I didn't realize it was going to be quite that small." But it came out okay for printing it that small. So I'm sure it's a beautiful piece printed larger. But I told Tony that's my diploma. I sat through your classes, and hopefully that's my diploma. So
I think the diploma would be sculpting it yourself and printing that. But
so yeah, what was it Rob telling us every time he sculpts something, he sends it to Tony and says, "Yeah, it doesn't look like a bear, but I'm trying." And he's not even trying to do a bear. He's just silly. So the 3D printing.
Yeah, how's it going for you? Doing okay?
Yes, it's a learning curve, and I think when we started last time, I don't know that I had even started yet. Had I?
You were just putting supports on Yosemite Sam for the first thing. I think you had just done your Rook.
Okay. Yes, because I believe I showed the Rook, right? And for those of you that missed it, here is the Rook.
Oh boy.
Okay. Which, you know what? For some reason, I think
cool
this
piece.
is a really cool piece. And I wish you could do a whole chess set because it would be kind of cool.
I'll bet you can.
Anyway, it's a learning curve. So it's not going to be for everybody. It's a learning curve for sure. And it requires some patience because you are going to have a lot of failures to start out with. And Jason and I will be happy to help anybody that wants to get into it. There's also a gentleman who we're going to have on today, Jamie Sy, who is also very helpful to us and more than willing to help other people as well. He's talked to Tony as well. So I know he's helped Tony through some things. It's like a new outlet. It's like, and I know you'll mention this when Jamie is on. It's like having Wonderfest every day at your house. I'm getting a new model. Okay.
Great.
And it's subject matter that I don't generally see.
Yeah.
I don't generally see these. And just so everyone knows, so this is printed. This prints all in one piece. This particular one. I could have made this bigger if I wanted, but I mean, I just look at that. Even at a garage kit that size, probably would have been $25.
Yeah.
And I paid $15 for the file and maybe have $5 worth of resin into the whole thing.
If that, yeah.
So yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Now I know I'm going to run out of things to buy unless people keep making things.
No, you're not.
And there's free things and stuff. And again, I don't think this is just going to replace the Garage Kit hobby. So I don't want to alienate every Garage Kit producer that watches this. But there's a place for this, and we'll discuss it a little bit with Jamie at the end of his interview, I hope. Yeah, we did. We already recorded it.
Yeah.
But anyway, we mentioned David Stan, how David incorporates 3D printing in his actual resin cast sculpting work.
And Todd Powell's going to talk about it too.
And
what
Todd's going to talk about it as well, how there's things that you just can't cast or would be darn near impossible to cast, or you'd have to cast in a zillion pieces. And even something as simple as this, and I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but yeah, it is kind of. See that tuft of hair between his eyes? But look at the undercut under there. Okay. Now, you'd either have to make that tuft of hair a separate piece, or you'd be going through silicone like crazy.
Yeah.
On something like that. And, that's just a small example. But where it will come in handy is, and you'll see me talk to Jamie about it, is the teeth on this particular kit. I could, in a couple hours, print 40 sets of teeth for this thing, if this was something I was producing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of unknowns, and there's a lot of questions. And I would like to get some producers on here and get their feelings about it. Todd obviously is a producer, and he gave us his feelings on it. And any producer that wants to come on and talk about it. And I don't even care if you want to ream us and say, you guys are nuts, whatever. Hey, we'll take it. Okay. We'll debate it, whatever. But we're not trying to alienate anyone. We're not trying to tell people don't buy garage kits. By all means, buy garage kits.
I think I say this in part of the interview. I think it's going to make garage kits better.
Yes.
Just for the simple fact there's parts you can print that you can't cast. And if you can put those parts in with a kit, it's going to make those kits better. And you can get higher detail and better garage kits. Simple as that.
Well, if you could put that picture of David's Tauntaun up there again. I know, like, that little handheld thing that Han Solo has in his hand there, that was all 3D printed, right?
That I have to go back and look exactly what there. Yeah, the scanner thing was, and then parts of the belt, the holster, I think are
right. The goggles, I know were.
Yeah.
And so I look at stuff like that and go, I wouldn't want to cast that. Okay, even at the size it is, I wouldn't want to cast it.
Yeah.
So there's so many positive uses for this. And again, dioramas, finding everyday objects to put in dioramas. It's really going to get interesting.
It's going to be cool. As far as the workbench goes on my side, did you paint anything? You didn't paint anything, did you? No. Okay. Because I always have to ask you that. I ended up.
What are you going to ask me when I do paint something? And I go, well, yes, as a matter of fact.
I can't wait. It'll be.
And I hold it up. Then what are you going to do?
I'm going to pull the birthday hats out again.
Oh, great. Streamers and
yeah. Streamers. What I've been working on, here's my workbench pictures. I finished up my FM article, which turned out okay. Submitted that. I'll wait and show a picture. Maybe I'll show a picture here. Finished that. And that writing the article ate up a ton of time, editing. So not a lot done in the last 2 weeks in terms of building. I have printed a lot. I finished a major giant print for this big guy right here, which is Reinhardt from Overwatch, which brings me back to kind of what Scott said, this is a kit no one would ever produce. Nobody.
Oh boy.
So this is just part of it. It's 17 pieces and it's huge. And it would cost so much money to make that no one would ever do it because there might be 3 of us that want it. right? But that's the hammer that goes with the kit. And I printed this in pieces. It's huge. And I might, like I said, I might be the only one in all of Garage Kit land that wants a Reinhardt kit. I got one. You know, it's one of those things. I don't have to wait for someone. It's there. It's done. So that took a long time to print. Now I'm printing up a bunch of the little things and going for there. So I want to get some painting done. That's
on your workbench. What do you got there on your workbench?
So on my workbench, still the Ghost of Castle Moray. We've been talking about it for a year. And then
I don't want to hear it anymore.
I have my sleeve stack from Rob. And I have from Ed Bradley, I'm gonna start painting his Kamen Rider versus Doris. So that's here. That's gonna get going on that. So and from Blackheart I have a Godzilla bust. What I want to do. So
where did you get that?
I got that like 2 years ago, I think. 3 years ago. At G Fest, maybe? I think I got a G Fest a couple years ago. So that's my workbench.
Does painting something that's gonna take you like 10 minutes like that count as painting something?
Yes.
No problem. Okay.
All right, we'll do this. One thing count. But I already painted 3. I did Sloth. I've done 2 AFM articles in that time.
AFM articles do not count in the challenge.
Bullshit. I did Sloth and 2 girls for this last step.
Don't count.
Bullshit. All right, anyway, we're going to move on. Here's our interviews. So we have Jamie Sy first, talking about the ins and out of 3D printing. We hope you enjoy that. And after that, interview with Todd Powell about how to incorporate it into your garage kit business. And we hope you enjoy.
Enjoy.
All right, and we're back with Jamie Sy for our 3D printing primer episode. How are you, Jamie?
Pretty good.
So,
glad to be here.
I'm very glad you're here. Scott, are you glad he's here?
Thrilled he's here. I've been in this guy's ear, so to speak, so much in the last few weeks for sure. So,
Jamie, how you found us somehow on the stupid YouTube show and reached out to me, and then we ended up meeting at Wonderfest. And you are like a brother that I have a brother, but I have more in common with you than I have with my real brother. When we just started talking about stuff, for the people who have said, "Oh, Gwar sucks," like Scuzzfink has. Jamie is also a huge Gwar fan, and he's wearing my other second favorite band, Skinny Puppy shirt, and he's wearing a black shirt, and this is awesome. So to actually have met you and meet someone who's into the exact same kind of things is awesome, because normally I have to sit here and listen to Universal Monster, blah, 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 but we can talk, and we get to talk about other cool things. So
right.
Thanks for joining us, and I'm very happy you found us. I'm happy I found you, and
War fans are far in between, man.
They are. It's not.
They sure
and that's okay. I want it that way. I don't want a lot of people liking them. But so we're here. We brought you on because you probably walked me up back from the cliff. And I know you kind of helped what you've taught me, and you've been talking to Scott, has really got me to where I think I feel very comfortable printing things from the first point of this sucks. It's not working. I don't know what's going on. And I think you've probably done that with quite a few people on the boards, on the resin printing boards. And let's just start with a brief introduction. How did you get started in garage kits? Because that's where you started, right?
Yeah. There used to be a local comic shop here.
Wait, where's here? Where's here?
Columbus.
Okay.
Columbus, Ohio. Yeah. And I think Terry Webb also shopped at the same comic book store.
I was just going to say, you live close to Terry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I was shopping there, and there was a Billiken kit on the shelf. So I bought it. I believe it was a Saucer Man kit. Had no idea how to put it together because I'd never seen a resin kit. I mean, I was probably 15 at the time. I'm 46 now. So, I think I took it home and asked my dad, and he said, "I never seen a model like this before." So I went back. I used to go on a weekly basis to this comic shop. Well, then there was another kit there. And even back then, Billikens were expensive compared to your car kits and whatnot. So I asked Jake, the owner, he said, "Oh yeah, the guy Mike Parks brings them in and sells them through the shop." And so he gave me his number, and then I think I had put it off to the side for a little bit. And then I bought Model and Toy Collector at like a Dane drug store or something. and it was the Dick Tracy issue. The only reason I bought it, because I hate Dick Tracy, the only reason I bought it was there was Mike Parks's Cyclops kit in there that came with the Roar style base. And he had his number there. And then it dawned on me, I said, oh, Jake gave me his number. So I called about the kit. Well, that magazine came out like quarterly, I think, back then. So by the time I got the magazine, the kit had already been sold to Geometric. They were already done producing it. So Mike's like, well, being the guy he is, he said, I think I got a few bits and parts. I can probably piece one together if you don't care if it's different colored resins or whatever. And I said, no. So he was at a toy show at the fairgrounds. He was going to show up there, and he said, I'll just bring it there with me and you can pick it up. And then that's when I found out he did the Bartenstein, and I'm a huge Simpsons fan. So I was like, oh, I got to have that. And it just kind of snowballed down from there.
Cool. And you used to go to Wonderfest a lot? Never once in a while?
First one I went to, I think, was the second show.
Okay.
And it was like 30 dealer tables. Like you could do the whole show in about 10 minutes. So my parents, I think, again, I was probably 15 or 16 at the time, drove me down to Louisville, dropped me off at the hotel where they went and visited some Civil War sites or something, and picked me up 4 or 5 hours later. I think the first kit I bought at that show was, I want to say it was a Geometric Pumpkinhead, I think. I remember saving, because that, even back then, that kit was expensive for a 16-year-old. And I think, and then I just continued going probably up until the early 2000s. And then I got married and had kids, and I was getting burned out because me and a couple of friends were vendors for a while. We did the chillers twice a year. But with the recasting and the politics, I mean, we literally saw people getting in fights at the show because of.
Oh, yeah, I know somebody who does
you
that.
Recasted my stuff. No, I didn't. And, it's like, it's plastic, people. Like, I come here to have fun, not see people fight. No one's getting rich off this stuff. Like, you'd act like they were still stealing $1 million from them or something.
It's funny, like Todd Powell said the same thing in our other interview we're doing for this episode. You're making like toys for middle-aged guys. Like it's
right.
Like how stupid is it? But we all are mad about it sometimes. Well, that's cool. So how did you get into 3D printing? When was your first printer? How did you find that?
My first printer was, and I kind of did it backwards because most people seem to start with the filament FDM printers.
Can we stop right there? Just for people who don't know, could you explain the difference between the two kinds of printers?
The filament, which is FDM, it's fused deposition something. I can't remember.
That's even better than I would have came up with. So.
Yeah. Basically, think of it as a robotic glue gun.
Yeah.
That can lay plastic down in 1/10 of a millimeter thickness. And then and those print from the bed up. So it literally builds from the ground up. Resin, it's just the opposite. You're printing upside down.
Okay.
And the resin is obviously, it's liquid. Even to this day, it's like there's nothing on the plate and I push play and come back in 12 hours and there's something there. Like it still blows my mind. But I remember seeing it. We have Micro Center here. I don't know if you guys have those near you.
Yep.
They used to have, and this was probably 4 or 5 years ago, they had the FDM printers on site working, and they were cool, but back then the resolution wasn't very good. They were good for prototype parts and, maybe some mechanical parts, but the detail wasn't there to do a kit. And they were expensive. And fast forward a few years, now we're getting FDM printers that are less than $180 that can print at a 0.12 resolution. Now that it's got to that point, it's almost, it's to the point where it's accessible for anybody. But I started off with resin because the quality when I first saw the FDM, it just wasn't like, I can't make a kit with that thing. But the resin stuff, That's fairly new. I want to say the Anycubic Photon and the Elegoo Mars were like the first major affordable printers. And I think those came out in 2018, 2019.
I would say, yeah, affordable. Because there were some
Yeah,
before
and
that
they-
were like
and
super expensive. And I was
When
like,
they
oh, those are cool.
released, they were still, the Mars and the Photon, I think, released at $499.
Yeah.
But back then, the only ones you could really get were the Form Labs and stuff that were thousands of dollars
Right.
and made for like the dental industry and commercial stuff. But I started seeing things popping up on Facebook with the Elegoo Mars. And I was like, most of it was people printing miniatures because those printers were so small.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of was just watching them and reading up on them, and more forums were being created. And then there was like this big boom almost where you had the Photon come out, Elegoo came out and undercut them. And then it became this back and forth of price wars. So it went within like a year, it seemed like the prices were cut in half.
Yeah.
And now you can get Elegoo Mars. I think I've seen them as low as $160 on Amazon. So I started off with the Elegoo Mars. I printed some 1/8 size kits off of that, but it was a pain because you got to cut it in so many parts. But it was still cool because it's like I can make this stuff at home.
Yeah.
But back then, yeah. So I got my Elegoo Mars probably mid 2019, I think.
So not that long ago. Like this is relatively new for most people.
About maybe 2 years coming up in October, maybe. But back then there wasn't as much information as there was now. I mean, it's moved so fast. So a lot of it was figuring out on your own. And back then, all the advice I got was these things take forever to print. So always, and they go by layers. So the taller something is, the more layers it is. So it takes longer to print. So best analogy would be a skyscraper. If you're making a 400-story skyscraper, it's going to take you way longer than if you're doing a 10-story skyscraper.
Right.
So everybody said lay your prints flat, as much flat as you can get them, because then it only takes you 2 hours to print instead of 10 hours to print. So everything I'm printing, I'm laying flat. And as you probably have learned, the least amount of surface area you can print at a time is the best way. So everything was sticking to the FEP, every single thing. And I got to the point, I went printing every day for 2.5 weeks, round the clock. I probably went through 3 liters of resin and didn't have a thing to show for it. And I literally called a friend of mine who had just bought one, and I said, I'm sending mine back. It's got to be broken. Like, it's not working. And then I found out the orientation's wrong. You want the least amount of surface area at a time to reduce the suction, the stickiness. And once I started getting that dialed in, it was like, it gradually became easier. And then it seems like you just reach a point where everything kind of comes together. So,
and I think my experience was very similar. The first 2 weeks was, oh my God, everything's failing. I don't know why. So I'll send you a message and you're like, here, try this. And then when it came to Scott starting, I think it's been a little easier for Scott because I took some of the bumps and was like, here, do this, use these settings. And it seems to have worked. Although Scott has had his share of fails as well.
Most of them, though, I can attribute to user error.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think most of the time when it does go wrong, you know why it went wrong. And you're like, okay, I can fix this.
Like today's run out of resin winner.
Good times.
I got a kick out of both of you the other night. Printed something in the wrong scale at the same time.
Tony, we're brothers. Deep down. Yeah, printed the wrong scale. So let's do this. If someone, and we'll get into some other just general conversation about 3D printing and stuff like that, but for someone that wants to get started, is there a brand you recommend? Is one better than the other? The one thing I would recommend, and I'll throw it to you here in a second, is watch videos. I spent probably a good year of watching videos on YouTube of people printing, how to do it, just to kind of familiarize myself with it. And I'm one of those people, when I make a big purchase, I like to research for like a good 3 months before I actually pull the trigger on something like that to say, okay, this is the one I want to get. What do you recommend? How do you get started in purchasing the things you need? Get started.
I did the same thing you did. I'm a research junkie because I want to get the most bang for my buck.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew nothing about resin printing at all. Like most people, I don't think do. So I read and watched videos. I was up in the air, like the Mars seemed to have the bigger. I mean, the major brands are Anycubic, Elegoo, Frozen, and EPAC seem to be the biggest ones. And then there's Vox Lab, and there's a couple other smaller. They're all Chinese companies except for EPAC's, I think, is made out of Taiwan, but they're located in North Carolina, I think. They seem to have the biggest user base, Elegoo. And it seemed like there was less complaints from the people who bought Elegoos. I'm not really a brand junkie, but I try to go towards what, the research is pointing me in, because there's people that swear by Anycubic, but I heard horror stories about the support after, user support, that you're on your own once you get it. They had issues with warped build plates, and then it took 6 months to get a new build plate. But there's people I know that bought the Anycubic Photon or the Anycubic Mono X, and they love it.
Yeah.
People need to realize too that these are, like a Saturn or Saturn or the Mono X. They're $500 machines out of China. Don't base your purchase on support. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, yeah, $500 is kind of a chunk of money, but there's machines like the Form Labs that are $1,200, $1,500. You're probably going to get better user support from them. Right. You're going to get a better machine. So I feel like people have a little too high expectations. There's a bunch of people on the forums. I emailed Elegoo and they didn't get back to me. And it's Chinese New Year and there's a 14-hour time difference. People get used to the Amazon where it's like instant returns, instant chat, and there's a language barrier as well. Any of the big brands, they all pretty much use the same boards made by Qitu. It's an electronics company. They make the boards, they make the screens. So they're all pretty much the same functionality wise. EPAC's tends to be the kind of like the Cadillac, I'd say, of the machines, because they make theirs upgradable. So you can get bigger screens for the same machine, but you're paying for that as well.
Right.
So
once you've picked your printer, what's the next thing you should do?
Find Jamie on Facebook.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I mean, the best thing, once you get your printer, I think then you gotta make sure you have the supplies, the rubber gloves. Right. I'm not a very safety conscious person. I should be, but some sort of safety glasses, I think, is definitely needed.
Oh yeah, I should wear those.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of fluids, there's resin splash. I don't know how many times I've dropped a piece back into the vat trying to get it, the plate off or whatever. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of chemicals involved.
And I haven't looked out of fear to see how dangerous things are. You should wear gloves. Two things I've noticed is you go through gloves and paper towels like water. You're going to be buying gloves and paper towels once a week, almost, it seems like.
Oh yeah.
So that's the two things you need right off the bat: gloves, paper towels, and then something to clean your prints with. Are you the water-based resin person, or are you the kind that you need alcohol to clean your prints?
I am the alcohol-based guy. I started with water washable. And just like in the garage kit hobby, it seems like there's things that are almost there's almost like a religious separation with some of these things. The way people just are adamant about it. I don't like the water washable. I had issues with cracking, like most people did. Even with hollow prints, cleaning them out thoroughly, they still cracked. Some people swear by it, but I've had it happen to me. There's a lot of people, I'm sure you've seen them on the forums too. The first question when someone shows a cracked print is it water washable? And the second answer is yeah. So, almost 98% of the time. I use denatured alcohol.
Yeah.
I got my first Saturn like at the start of the pandemic when you couldn't find alcohol. And then I got my second one during like the second half of the pandemic and you still couldn't find alcohol. And when you did, it was $10 a quart, it seemed like.
Yeah.
And then I had a guy mention denatured alcohol and he said it's basically 99% alcohol. They just put an additive in it so you can't drink it. And he said, well, you could drink it, but you'll just die. But I feel I've tried both.
Jason, when he says he's tried both, that doesn't mean he's drank it. Don't try to drink it.
I have enough alcohol over there.
Yeah. I've tried the 99% IPA, isopropyl alcohol. I've tried the 91%. I've never tried the simple green method.
That doesn't look good to me.
Recommend.
Yeah.
Because you're cleaning the resin, and I'm not a physicist or chemical person or anything, but you're cleaning the resin, and the way you're cleaning it is you're dissolving the resin off of the print. You're not necessarily cleaning it like you're scrubbing dirt off. So you need a solvent, which is denatured alcohol or IPA. Most of your simple greens are a degreaser,
right?
First and foremost, and then they have a second ability to be a solvent. So I've never really used that.
It's great for stripping paint. It's simple grain
off of
paint.
kits.
Yep.
Oh yeah, the purple power. I use that a lot for kits. But yeah, like so I go with the denatured, and my results have been a lot better than even with 99% IPA, and it's cheaper. I think I pay $10 a gallon for it.
It's 15 here. Damn.
Yeah, at Menards, I think it was 10 or 12 bucks a gallon. But yeah, you can't touch a gallon of IPA for like $20 or $30.
Yeah.
So.
I love when you go to Home Depot, they call it fuel.
Yeah, it says fuel.
Yeah, camper fuel. Yeah.
Everybody knows me and fire. I don't need any fuel.
Yeah, I told my wife, I said, if our house ever catches fire, it's going to be like a meth lab blowing up because I got gallons and gallons of denatured alcohol down there.
I know.
Well, and that's another thing I go through a lot of. And like when I go to Menards or something and I bag my stuff, I'll grab extra bags because almost daily I'm taking a bag outside to the garbage can. So I don't have a bag full of denatured alcohol, paper towels or whatever. And so it's going out. Yeah, almost.
That's funny. I wanted to mention that as well. Like I have never emptied my garbage can that sits here for my painting. It's usually like Q-tips or paint caps or something. It sits there for a month before it fills up. I'm emptying that now once a week. I should do it more.
Yeah, I ended up going back to the glove thing. I ended up buying the heavy duty chemical gloves. I think from Menards or Lowe's, one of them. Because I was burning through nitrile gloves like no tomorrow. And again, with the pandemic, the price of nitrile gloves has like quadrupled.
So yeah, they were what, $9 at Harbor Freight. They're up to $20 for a box of gloves and some things.
Yeah,
and I like Harbor Freight
puts a sign up that says, "Yeah, sorry, we had to double the price."
You know,
there's some problem
due to their supplies or something. But so I ended up investing in those thick chemical gloves, and those have saved me tons on gloves.
Yeah, maybe. I think I have. Actually, I think I have some from a costume.
Yeah, and I know people clean with acetone. Apparently, acetone is the Cadillac of cleaners for resin prints. You literally just dunk them in there for like 20 seconds, and it's done. but I don't know. You guys have the wash and cure stations. I just have 2 buckets. Like they're like the airtight food storage containers. But each one's about half a gallon to 3/4 of a gallon of denatured, and I kind of use this 2-step approach. I have the first step, I put my print in there, scrub it with the toothbrush, get the bulk of the stuff off of it. Then I put it in the second container as like a rinse. So I got 2 big buckets of denatured alcohol sitting out fuming up the basement, and acetone. When my wife does her nails, I can't stand being around it. So I couldn't imagine having like a half gallon of it open at all times.
Yeah. When I used to paint my nails, I didn't like the smell of that.
Yeah.
But,
wait. You painted your nails?
Yeah, I used to paint my nails all the time.
I don't even want to go there. All right.
I think I showed the picture before.
That's fantastic. You are a bigger weirdo every fucking week. I swear to God. So, Jamie, what do you do with your polluted denatured alcohol?
I have a waste bucket outside. I tried the recycle approach, where you let it settle, then you let the sun cure it, and then you essentially wick off all the good stuff off the top, and then the bottom is, the jelly, gelatinous grossness. It was so messy, so time consuming. It really wasn't worth it. I know there's guys that have bought like distilling bought distilling.
I've been looking at those. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can get them for like $100.
Yep.
It probably would pay for itself over time, but I'd rather just print than mess around with that stuff. So I just put mine in a bucket. I got a big bucket outside. It's got a top on it so animals and stuff can't get in there. It's got some holes in it, and I just pour it in there and let it evaporate. And then the hardened resin in the bottom just goes in the trash.
I've looked at that still, and what scares me about it is like they say it only takes an hour to do like a gallon.
Yeah.
So luckily I have a detached garage, so I could run it out there, and even in the wintertime run it, because I guess the denatured alcohol will not thaw, or will not freeze, I should say. But it is interesting. Like you say, it'll probably pay for itself, after a while.
I want you to try it first.
Long, so
I've seen people build them out of like those big old time coffee pots, that you plug in.
Yeah.
I've seen some, and that's got like the spout on the front where you just hold your cup under it. I've seen some guys build some out of those. But like I said, I don't want to spend hours.
If you do
alcohol.
that, buy one made for alcohol.
I want to drink it.
Yeah. They have specific ones made for alcohol. You probably don't want to buy one that you're distilling water in. So, but
none of this is going to end up well for me. That's why I won't probably do it.
But yeah, I guess the SDS sheets, the safety data sheets, from what I've read, they're kind of vague. And again, this stuff's coming out of China, where they probably don't have the same type of safety regulations we do. It is
EPA in China.
It is a sensitizer, the resin. So what that means is it may not affect you immediately if you get it on your skin, but if you keep getting it on your skin or you keep breathing the fumes, 6 months down the road, you may start having adverse reactions. So it kind of slowly builds up in your system. And then one day you're like, why am I all breaking out? I guess it happened to one guy. He didn't have any issues with it for like a year. And then he spilled some on his skin and almost had like instant chemical burn type reactions to it. But
that scares me a little bit, because I've kind of had that happen with Avi's safety solvent.
Oh, okay.
I used so much of that stuff when I was working on my art degree, and now when I get it on my skin, it's like I don't know, my fingers feel weird. The worst thing I ever did as a modeler, the Squadron green putty.
Oh yeah,
I used to smooth that with my bare hands.
Mm.
And after about an hour, my whole hand was numb to my wrist. And I'd be like,
that's a Sullivan based putty, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not good. So I was like, why is this happening? And then I'm like, oh, I'm not going to use this anymore. I'm dumb.
Yeah.
The weirdest thing I ever did was years ago, before they changed Pine Sol, you could strip models with Pine Sol.
What was in
Plastic
there?
models, and it wouldn't affect the plastic. And so I stripped this Godzilla's go-kart because I ended up casting it, so I wanted all the paint off of it. So I told the guy, I said, you disassemble it, I'll strip the paint off of it. And so my hand was in this stuff for like an hour and a half. And it dried my hands out so bad. I felt like the mummy afterwards. That, and then I did easy off one time and got some on my skin. And the same thing with the purple power, man. Wear gloves if you use any of that shit because chemical burns suck.
Yeah, I know.
So, I mean, it's not as cool as sticking your arm in a bucket of plaster, I
No.
guess, but
No, but it still hurts.
Yeah.
The other really dumb thing, and everyone should probably do this. Maybe we should have a safety episode. I was spraying Liquitex when I painted my Inaleg spawn kit. I was spraying Liquitex cadmium red through my airbrush without a mask, without anything, and that's probably the worst thing I've probably ever done. I think if I get lung cancer, it's that and the camels. I think. Anyway,
yeah, I'd go on the camels. I'd go with the camels. Just
years of smoking. Okay. So everyone has their printer. Everyone has some of their stuff. And we're here if anyone wants to message us and we'll help you out. But you have your supplies, you have your printer. Where do you get your files? Where do you go find stuff to print?
You got Thingiverse, which is a plethora of free files. And the things you can find on there is quite surprising. I think didn't Scott need an anvil for something, and then
Yep, I
you
found one.
threw up
Yeah.
a picture, a link like 30 seconds later. So it's like, what day and age? Like,
Yeah.
I need an anvil. Here's one. Oh, I can just print it. So yeah, you have Thingiverse. That's 100% free downloads. Cults 3D is a big one. There's some free stuff on there. There's several STL Facebook's groups on there. Those are probably 99.9% are paid files. I know My Mini Factory is a good one. There's some free stuff on there.
Yeah, there is a lot of free stuff. Like there's people that will like put out like a little promo piece to get you to come to their page, basically.
Yeah,
and you can filter by free.
CG Trader.
CG Trader. Gambody is another one.
Yeah.
I think they're mostly pay.
Yep.
So you've done this obviously longer than we have. How do you know when you go to a site and you want to download a file? How do you know that's the original guy that did the artwork?
That's where places like My Mini Factory, Thingiverse, you do have to watch out because there's a lot of people that get the files off Thingiverse and then they'll sell them on their Etsy stores. So if you're looking for something, check Thingiverse first before you buy from like Etsy or eBay, because more than likely it's probably come off of Thingiverse. You got to be careful. Most of your sites like Gambody, I think Nico Industries is a new one that's kind of becoming a sales site for STLs now. Then there's also one called Thangs, Thangs. It's kind of similar to a Thingiverse. And then there's a search engine called Yegi. You may have seen that.
I've come across that. Yeah.
It's basically like a Google search, and it searches all the different STL sites. So if you just type in, Roadrunner STL, you might see a link for Yegi pop up. If you click on that, it basically searched all the other sites. And then when you click on that Yegi link, it takes you to the site. The big thing right now is the I think most of it's coming out of Hong Kong and Taiwan areas, China, where they're scanning those big, really expensive sideshow statues that are like $1,500. They're scanning those and selling the STLs to those. The way I found out was I have a friend who's a big collector of the sideshow pieces, and he follows a lot of the sideshow YouTube groups and stuff. And I sent him a file. I think it was a Batman. And I said, yeah, look at this. I found this file for $15. I can, if you want it, I can print it for you. He says, oh, that's the sideshow or some company that released a statue, and it was like a $800 bronze piece or something. And I'm like, oh, and he was like, yeah, it looks like they scanned it or something. So I didn't know that. I mean, because I'm not into the sideshow pieces. So then once he tipped me off, I kind of looked into it more. So there is kind of what I've been calling digital recasting, where they're stealing the files, selling them, scanning other people's works, and then selling the file. If you go to the legitimate sites, My Mini Factory, Cult, CG Trader, those are heavily policed. When you post stuff, you have to create an account. I think you have to verify that account that it's you. Still probably not 100% bulletproof, but if you buy from those sites, pretty much your money's going to the creator of that file.
So this leads us into an ethics conversation, I think. Garage Kids guys have been whipped by the recasting whip for years, right? So everyone's a little like gun shy. They don't want to. They're very tight with their stuff. Like they're afraid to put something out there. Someone's going to recast it. Someone's going to do something. What are the pitfalls that a garage kit producer, if they wanted to get into something or print a kit or have like, what do you foresee that could be a problem for them? What do you think that an unscrupulous person might do with a garage kit thing if they had it, or just, I mean, in general, talk maybe about some of that or something you might have come across, because you were in the garage kit stuff before this and you know both.
Yeah, I mean, and as you know, and I don't want to play devil's advocate here, but if you're selling an unlicensed kit, and this has been covered a million times, you essentially are profiting off of somebody else's IP. So if somebody takes your IP and copies that and makes money off of that, are they really, ethically it's wrong? Because yeah, you put the time and effort into sculpting that piece, they just took it and you did all the work for them. But essentially you're stealing someone else's IP, just like this person's stealing, so there's a whole gray area there.
Right. And that argument's been going for years. And
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it, there's rights and wrongs on both ends of the argument. We wouldn't have this hobby if we didn't have fan art, I believe is what they call it now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think it's wrong if somebody takes your fan art that you created, whether it's based on somebody else's intellectual property or not. Because you put the work into it. Yeah, it's wrong. I'd be mad too if I spent, 100 hours sculpting that piece, and then you just come and take it and sell it, and
right.
You didn't have to put all the. So yeah, I get it. I think you're going to see a problem with scanning people's work, which is being done now. And scanners, good quality scanners right now are ridiculously expensive. I think the cheapest decent scanner, even worth buying to scan anything at a high resolution, I think they're $700 or $800, and that's for like a handheld. But there's iPhone apps, because the iPhone has what they call a LiDAR scanner in it, and that's what they use to measure depth with their camera modules. And that LiDAR scanner is perfect for 3D scanning. And there was a guy who wrote an app for the iPhone that does some pretty decent scanning with a $10 app and your iPhone. You just walk around the piece and scan it in 360 degrees, throw it in this app and do some touching up, and you could probably get a pretty decent print out of it.
And in 5 years, it'll be
right.
times as good. Like,
even less, I think Samsung's talking about some type of scanning thing in their new phones coming out. So those items are progressively going to get better and cheaper. I'd say even less than 5 years, we'll probably have real good hand type scanners we can use. So the problem's just going to get worse. But I understand, talking with some sculptors, they're worried about putting their work out there in an STL form, even though it could be very profitable for them, because it's their work. They don't, as an artist, you don't really want your work stolen. You don't really want it freely shared, unless that's your intent. But if you're spending all these hours sculpting a digital sculpture to sell, and then somebody you get one person that buys that file for $20, and then they throw it up on a file sharing site. Now 300 people have your file. The bad news is that's going to happen. There's no way you can stop it. I know there's like some sort of digital watermarking that somebody's been doing, so you can actually almost digitally sign a file. So if you bought a file from me and then somebody starts sharing my file, I can download that file and find out who originally bought it. So it'll have like a checksum or something type thing.
Okay.
I think that is signed
cool.
to you. Yeah. So I could be like, well, Jason was the one who bought this file
originally. Yeah.
Yeah. Originally. Now it's out there. So he either put it up there or shared it with somebody else who shared it. So that technology's kind of coming up. So it still won't stop the sharing, but you can at least track down the people who do it and maybe kind of in a way blacklist them.
Right. Which is a good thing. And I think it kind of goes, when I was talking to sculptors a little bit, it's a very similar thing to happen with music, right? Music used to be, this set price, and then all of a sudden it's free and you can get it wherever you want. And they had to scramble to figure out how to do it. I think the people that were stealing music were the same people that were never going to buy it in the first place. And you're not going to ever get those people anyway. If someone likes you as a sculptor, if someone treasures you as an artist, they're going to give you the money regardless. They're not going to go buy that stolen file. They're not going to go and spend or share it around because they actually have respect for you. So if you kind of build up a community with people, and I think this leads into a Patreon conversation, if you build a community with people and people respect you as an artist, they're not going to share your work, and they're going to pay money for it if they like what you're making. And it's sad that people do that, but I think you have to kind of look at the way the music industry went and the way the movie industry went with Netflix and make it a service more than an individual basis. Like you're trying to keep subscribers versus selling an individual sculpt. Both of you want to chime in either on that? I don't know, but that's my thinking on it. I think
I agree. I mean, you have to look at the sales you're making as opposed to the potential money you lost by that file getting shared. Focus on the good, not the bad. I'm a member of a Patreon. The guy has 4,500 subscribers. He releases almost a dozen models a month, sometimes more, for a $10 fee. Not every month is there something I want to print, but I still pay that $10 because the amount of stuff he puts out is great, and he gives you full licensure to print as many items and sell as many as you want. So you have, as long as you don't share the file and you give him credit in your sales, he even lets you use his renders on your sales page.
Which
So-
that one I don't get that whole don't share the file, but print as many as you want and sell them.
Yeah, but
Because
this,
I'm on one of those too. And
yeah,
I'm
so
like, wow.
this guy's making, 4,500 subscribers at $10 a month.
45,000, Jason.
$45,000 a month, and I talked to him a few
Wait,
times.
45,000 a month or 4,500?
No,
He has 4,500 would be $1 a month.
Oh shit.
Yes, yeah.
See,
So he's overseas and gets taxed heavily, and he said Patreon takes a cut, his conversion fees get hit, his tax gets hit, but he's still walking away with 60 to 70% of that money. And here's the thing, his stuff turns up the day he releases a kit, it pops up on the file sharing. You'll see it for free. His people, because he's very active with his subscribers, he fixes stuff almost immediately. If you like, I was doing a darkness kit and I wanted to do it in a larger scale, but it wouldn't fit on the Saturn because he still had the arms attached. So I sent him a instant message and said, hey man, yeah, I'm one person out of 4,500. He's probably never going to answer me, I said, hey, is there any chance you could, cut and key the arms so I can print it at a larger scale on my Saturn? 2 days later, he sent me the file with the arms cut off. So his files get shared, but his subscribers are like piranhas. Once they find somebody sharing his file, I mean, they're shutting this guy down as quick as they can.
And that's kind of what I meant. You have to make your own little army, like your file, like send them out to find people screwing you.
Okay, his file gets shared, and he probably, how many of those people probably downloaded that shared file and printed it and sold it or whatever. But those people would have never subscribed anyway, like you said. Okay, well, he's making 45 grand a month. I don't care if my file's getting shared. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of I'm sure he cares because he does try to go after these people, or
and rightfully so, you should.
Yeah, they actually figured out of the group who shared one of the files. I don't know how, but they kind of tracked it back with subscribers, and they figured out who did it. And, the guy's probably having a hard time buying files from anybody at this point because the word gets out there that, so-and-so's a file sharer. So yeah, there's that. You just kind of have to focus on the good and not the bad. I mean, MP3s and file sharing didn't kill the music industry.
No.
We still got music. We get it in different forms now. Just like I don't think 3D printing, which seems to be looked down upon by some in the hobby. You hear people bad mouthing it on the forums, in the Garage Kit forums. And I remember back in the day, we were always looked down in the Garage Kit hobby by the armor guys and the car guys.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you guys build monster kits and yucky resin, and but now they're doing kind of the same thing that was done to them, and I'm like, it's kind of hypocritical, It's almost looked upon as like a scourge on the industry or something, and it's just progression, really. I mean,
it is.
But I can see how these, model producers probably see it as a threat, because I don't have to mail order now. I don't have to wait a year to go to Wonderfest. If I want to print a kit of Laura Croft, I can go to 6 different websites, find 6 different kits, probably pay as little as $5 or upwards of $25, and I can have it tomorrow morning.
Mm-hmm.
So
you said something really cool to me. You said it's like having Wonderfest in your pocket.
Yeah.
Or in your house, like every day.
Yeah. I mean, I spend probably more time than I should just browsing STL sites, man. Like it's almost like I can't get enough of this stuff,
Yeah.
And I print more than I build, which is, I can see your stack building up back there.
So I wanted to get into that for a second. It's probably the worst thing I could have ever bought. I have so much stuff as it is. to buy something that puts more things in my house at a rate at which, like, it's ridiculous. It was the worst decision, but best decision ever, because it's just going to be a pile of unbuilt resin kits to go with the unpile or printed kits with the miniatures, with this and that, and
Yeah.
all over.
But half the fun,
yeah.
I mean, half the fun of it to me is just printing it.
Yeah.
Like, design it in the slicing software, supporting it. I may be a masochist or something because I find that fun.
Yeah, you got a problem.
I said the same thing to Todd Powell yesterday. It's almost like a video game because you're trying to find your islands, and it's like a little OCD video game that you have to play to figure out how to get something perfect.
Yeah. And so somebody made a good comment on I think it was one of the filament-based forums, and he said 3D printing is probably one of the most frustrating hobbies, but it's also the most rewarding. So, and that's the thing, helping you guys and helping a couple other people that you guys put in touch with me. And
we're sorry, by the way.
Oh, no, because I understand the frustration, and it's like, you spend a lot of money on this hobby. It's not cheap. I mean, it's cheaper now, but especially if you get like the bigger printers, every fail is essentially costing you money because it's just going into the trash unless sometimes you can fix them or make them usable. But
and every support is wasted money. I mean, that's just going in the garbage.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, yeah. And that's where you want to get your support game on, because you don't want to add unnecessary supports, but you also don't want to not use enough supports and have the whole thing fail. So,
right.
Run out of resin in your vat because you're an idiot.
Yeah, my resin in my vat is always at the line. I don't care what I'm printing; it's always at the line. Because I
like to roll the dice, Jamie. I'm rolling the dice. Yeah, I think I got enough in there, And
it's so that's the thing is it's very frustrating, and I didn't have too much help. There wasn't that much help back then, because everybody at that point was still kind of figuring it out. So, and I'm glad I stuck with it. And then when I know you started having problems, you're like, I'm gonna just give up, And,
yeah, and mine was on the way. He's telling me this sucks. I'm giving up, and I'm like, dude, I just fucking bought one.
And even when you have somebody telling you like it'll get better, you're still thinking like, this dude's lying to me. I can't get this to work. But it is such a rewarding thing, and it is a cool thing. Like, I'm making this stuff in thin air, basically.
Yeah.
So I don't like to see people quit, because I know like eventually they'll get it. I helped a guy not too long ago. He got an FDM printer. He saw this. He goes to the same tattoo guy I go to, and he saw the prints my tattoo guy. I do prints for him all the time. We basically just trade art for art. So he'd see all these things in there, and he's like, "Oh, I want to do that," And the way you kind of, I don't know about you, but when I first saw it on the internet and watching videos, it's like you pour liquid in, you push a button, you get up, and you got to print. Yeah, that's lies.
Yeah.
It looked easy. Everything you see makes it look easy. And then you realize it's not easy when you first start. And this guy was like, I'm buying an FDM printer. And that's a whole nother boat in itself. What you learn in resin does not translate to FDM printing.
Yeah, fused deposition modeling, by the way.
Yeah. Resin, it's all about your settings and your supports and your orientation. Those three things. If you can get those three things down, you can do it successfully. FDM, you have feed rates, you have supports, extrusion widths, and all this stuff. So it's a whole separate ball game. I don't want to say one's easier than the other, but when I bought my FDM machine, it was literally put the file in and I push the button, and I did have a print. I don't know if I got lucky with that, or maybe I, the resin gods were like, he had a hell of a time with resin. We're going to let him go easy on this one. But this guy, he saw all those prints at my tattoo guy, and he saw, yeah, Jamie does those. And he saw, what kind of printer should I get? And I said, well, he didn't want to get in the resin because it was kind of expensive. So I said, we'll get this one. Within a week, he had made a post that he was selling his printer. He put slightly used Vox Lab for sale, used 3 times. I just can't get it to work. So I texted him and I said, what's going on, man? And he said, I can't get it to stick to the bed. And, that's the reverse thing. We worry about sticking to the bed or not sticking to we don't want it to stick to the bed, essentially. FDM, you want it to stick. He couldn't get it to stick, and it's just a big ball of spaghetti because the printer doesn't know it failed. It just keeps spitting out filament.
It does look. I've seen them. They look like a
big ball of spaghetti. So I said, don't sell it. I said, it's frustrating, but here. So I helped him, and he lives a good 35, 40 miles away, and he's one of these guys. He's like, I can't. He's like, I need you to just come over and show me. And I'm like, well, you're like an hour away. I'm like, I can't just. So I said, we'll try to work through it. I'll Zoom with you or whatever. About a month later, he's sending me pictures. He bought 3 more printers. And he's got this whole thing going in his basement, and he's painting them and selling them now. And it's like, see, if you would have gave up, you wouldn't. He's having the time of his life now. And he's making some side money. So it's like, if you would have sold that printer, you wouldn't be at this point. So and you guys probably know from being on the forums, there is a lot of elitists on there.
I noticed that. Yep.
And just, they're just assholes.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but there's a lot of them that
there are.
You ask a simple question, you're new to it. It's a simple question because you've never done it before. And they act like you should know this, and they demean you and everything else. And
it's the worst.
So many people just quit the forums because of that.
The guy with the tilted build plate, though, he kind of deserved a little bit. Okay. He's like, well, I was afraid to tighten it. I'm like,
yeah, what? I'm blind in one eye, and I can see that thing is off by like half inch.
I'm glad you're not putting tires on my car. That's all I'm saying. Okay. I was afraid to tighten it. Yeah.
I think what makes that happen, the elitism, is you take your computer video game nerds and mix them with hobby nerds, and you get this super that, because that's how video game guys talk. Like, oh, you should know this. You should be better than this. You should do this, this, and this. And it's just the constant mean, condescending bullshit. And it's so great to have found you. And I'll give the pledge here for anyone who does want to jump in. I'll help you through it. I'm sure Scott will walk you through some. Because I think if you stick with it, it'll be very rewarding, like they said, or like Jamie said. And it's something that I want people to try. And even looking at, when you look at people's pages for their STL that they want you to download, they have a painted copy sometimes, and the painted copy looks terrible. And it's like, I want these two worlds to come together because they have no idea who Jeff Camp or who any of these amazing painters are on our side of the world, or Ben Comets. They don't know who any of these painters are or who the good sculptors on our side are, but we don't know who they are either. And if we could just get the miniature world, the 3D printer, and the garage kit, if everyone can just kind of, it would be amazing. This hobby would be supercharged, and you'd have such a brand new look on everything. And I if we do one thing, it's that I want to bring people together. So it's, don't get discouraged. Keep trying.
Well,
please try.
And I've talked to a few garage kit producers, and like you guys said, there's a lot of pushback. Okay. Yet I've had one tell me, maybe I have to think about it. And not so much, and I'll still say this. And we talked to Todd last night, and Todd is doing a lot of production. But he's got 4 or 5 printers running at one time. It's hard if you're going to produce a model and make 50 or 60 of them, and it's a 1/6 scale model. Man, you're going to have a waiting list 6 months long before you print all of those. Okay. Because of, again, the size and all that. So I don't think the traditional mold making and resin casting is going away just yet. Okay. And I don't think the traditional clay sculpting is going away just yet. Although I will say this, when you really think about it, there's probably more digital sculptors out there right now than there are traditional clay sculptors. And that's not taken away from none of those guys that are still sculpting in clay because they do beautiful work. Okay. But I think there's room. There's that David Stan from Stan Arts, the Tauntaun kit. He had 3D printed parts in with his resin cast parts. And I think that that's a good use for this stuff. Okay. Some of this detail, I had a guy telling me the other day, well, your LED screen's going to go bad, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, after how long? And molds go bad too after 50 casting. So, they're just so against it. I think they feel threatened. And I don't necessarily think it's a threat because I don't think everyone in the hobby is going to buy a $500 printer and or have the patience or knowledge, computer knowledge to do it. So I think that if anything, guys like us, we're going to have guys coming to us saying, print this for me. Okay.
Which has happened.
And which has already happened to me. I know Jamie's been doing it for a while. I got this alien I want you to print, by the way, Jamie.
Oh. Yeah, if I do another one of those, it's that.
But
I'm going on 18 days of actual print time. If you factor out when the printers are off and I'm slicing, the printers have actually been running for 18 days total time.
Can you describe the actual kit to people?
Huh?
Can you describe that alien kit to people? Like the size of it?
It was a gentleman. I think it was on Cults. It's 24, 25 inches tall. And it's an alien that's like sitting on a hive base and he's crouching down, like looking on, and there's like 4 alien eggs that, the eggs themselves are about the size of large chicken eggs that you would buy at the store. And then from the back of the piece, there's like a continuation of the hive. So I think the total piece is 25 inches tall, 25 inches deep, and like 14 inches wide. I added it up, and my total print time, the alien was done in resin. He's true quarter scale. His tail's, I think, 36 inches long.
Wow. Okay.
And it wraps all the way around. He was done in resin. His dome was done in clear. And then the base, and this is where FDM printing comes in. The base was done in filament, which is why it's taking so long. But I wouldn't be able to do that size even on the Saturn. Plus, it would probably cost 4 or 5 liters of resin, I bet. So I think total time it's going to be over 450 actual print hours. I'm wrapping it up this week, and I'm doing it for my tattoo guy. And and the file itself was, I think the file was $80, something like that. But I told him, because I do a lot of prints for him from the one Patreon I'm joined, so I can sell those. And if people request a kit, I either buy the STL for them and include it in the price, or I have them send me the file. So I do a lot of kits for him, and then people see them and then they want them, so he sends them my way. I did that alien, and he had 3 people already ask about it. It's not even 3/4 of the way done yet. And I said, I had a couple people ask. He said, how much, if anybody's interested? And I said, you have to tell them like $700. Like, I'm so burnt out on printing this. Printing takes a long time. It's literally tied up both my FDMs for like the last 18 days.
And you got some guys that need some stuff.
Yeah, I'm throwing your guys' little care package stuff in between.
I didn't ask for anything. That's him.
Well, I figure if I'm shipping it, I'll just double up on everything, and you guys can fight over it.
Yeah, Jamie, I'll charge him for it.
He probably will. He's a son of a bitch. Let's just real quick before we go out on this. Garage kits. What's your Grail garage kit? Is there one you've never been able to find?
I think I found it. I kind of purged a bunch of kits a while back, and I had a Tremors geometric kit, which I see on your back shelf there.
It's still sitting there.
Yeah.
I don't think the kit's in there. I think it's just a box. And
Yeah.
torture rack.
I think one of the big ones I never got was the Atomic Nosferatu, which I feel like he's made that available on his site again,
I
but I'm
think
not
so.
positive.
He's actually on Etsy.
Is he? Yeah.
Yeah.
I know
Okay.
his website. It looks like they're for sale again, but I don't know if his website's been updated or not. But that was probably one of them. I did get a Mike Parks Mad Labs Fright Night Amy kit. Some guy in Hawaii was moving, and obviously moving from Hawaii, you got to ship all that stuff overseas to get it to the States, and he was basically just cleaning house. So I think I ended up getting that kit for like $50.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, compared to the stuff today, it's that old brown orange resin that's probably as toxic as drinking gasoline, but
Oh, that's
stuff's horrible.
Yeah.
You just open the box and you can smell the chemicals. But that was one I always wanted from him that I just, back then things were real expensive and I was young, so I only had so much expendable income on this stuff. And so you had to pick and choose. But
So do you see this impacting the traditional garage kit hobby? I mean, to the point where they're worried about it, or
I
do
think
you see it as a
that-
merge?
I think that's who it's going to impact, are the people that are worried about it. It's a progression. I think eventually we'll see it more absorbed to where you're going to see more files for sale. And maybe even at the conventions, people will be selling the files, where you can just buy them there at the convention and give your guy your thumb drive and he'll give you the file for $20. I could see that as a possibility.
The bad thing about that is you'd see a bunch of guys giving each other thumb drives out in the lobby.
Oh yeah. And like I said, at that point, you got to accept the good with the bad. But I think the guys who don't adapt to this and use it as a tool, like the one guy you guys were talking about, he does some 3D printing stuff. Some kits are 3D printed, but like you said, it's a slow process. You're going to have people waiting for months to get a kit if you're 3D printing all of them. I think, like you said, there's some things you just can't cast, but you can 3D print. I mean, there's some things on these 3D prints that I'm like, there's no way in hell somebody could cast that without some sort of super expensive injection molding or something like that.
Even this stupid thing, you could never cast this.
Right.
Okay.
So I think 3D printed parts is a good example of using it as a tool. It's quicker to hand cast something than it is to 3D print it. So do the bulk of your hand casting, and then the finer parts like the hands or something, you could 3D print those and get the crazy detail out of it.
Well, yeah, and like this Tasmanian devil I did. So he's roughly this big.
Yeah.
He's in the light, sorry. But so he had teeth. So he had 5 sets of teeth, 5 little teeth pieces, and here's one of them. Okay, it's still in the supports.
Right.
Because it cures easier this way. And now, if I was pouring that kit, I could fill up a build plate with these teeth.
Yep.
And, in that instance, I wouldn't cast those teeth. And those teeth would be a pain in the ass to cast. Not impossible, but a pain in the ass to cast.
But those would be, air bubble city, man.
Yeah. So it's so again, I would cast those, okay, or I would print those. Even the stupid tongue, which I told Jason was his scrotum the other day. I would maybe even print those because they're nice and small, and you could put a bunch on a plate.
Yeah.
But again, to print or to cast the whole piece, this was a 5 or 6 hour print. Okay. And you ain't putting 2 on the plate. I mean, even this doesn't look that small, but you're not putting 2 of those on the plate. I can tell you that right now. Not at that size. That being said, though, I couldn't cast it like this. All
Right.
I would be casting this in sections. So, again, there's pluses, there's minuses, there's
Yeah, and I mean, like with those small parts, you'd be better
Mhm.
off because you could do a whole plate and get 10 sets of them
right.
and include those. And now you just saved a ton of money on silicone making molds for all that stuff,
Mhm.
which, like you said, would be hard to cast in the first place. So I think if people use it like that, which some of these smarter guys are doing, they're adapting and using it to speed up production or make better production kits. Those are the guys that are probably going to do well. It's almost getting to the point where you remember when the pre-paints were coming into the hobby,
Mhm.
and that kind of caused a rift. That's kind of where we're at right now. But you got your pre-paint guys and you got your garage kit guys. Some people don't want to invest money in paints and time. They just want to buy it pre-painted, stick it together and be done with it.
Well, and there's these superhero guys that have these big quarter scale fan art pieces done.
Yeah.
And they're paying, they're only casting up like 20 of them. And so the guys that are buying them are paying like $800 to $1,200 a piece just for the kit. But it's not really a kit. It's not really it's a whole different branch of things. And then they send them to somebody like John Allred or Riojas or something. And and then you're ending up, you're probably dumping another $1,200 to $1,500 into a paint job. And at first I said, "Ooh, how's this going to impact the garage kit hobby?" Well, honestly, it hasn't at all, because it's like 2 separate things. Even though it's a lot of the same stuff, it's 2
Yeah.
separate things. And I think you're still going to have some separation with this stuff. But yes, it's going to creep in.
Yeah.
It-
And
it's
I
gonna
mean,
creep in.
a lot of these producers could use this as another source of revenue. If you're a sculptor, you could sell files. You could sell files of the kit for people who want to 3D print it at home. You could sell cast versions of the kit, because some of these guys are printing a master and then
Mhm.
they're making a mold off that master and then casting it. That
Mhm.
speeds up production. Um, so those are the guys that are kind of putting it in their arsenal of stuff. And I think those are the guys that are kind of embracing it and are going to move along with the progression of it. These people that are just holdouts, that are old school, that see it as a scourge on the hobby, and everything's going digital. I mean, it is, and now our hobby's kind of heading into the digital era too, where you can, and just having, the ability to have immediate help with these things too.
Mhm.
Um, what's these kit guys that actually maybe use 3D printed parts for their smaller parts. So you buy a kit and Taz's tongue was broken when you got it. You know, the guy could almost just send you the file of the tongue and you could print your own. You can't really go wrong with that, because you could
Right.
you could share the file of the tongue, but if
Right.
it's just a file of a tongue, where's it going to go with?
Right.
So that's kind of a, almost a customer service thing, where that way you don't have to wait for a part to get mailed to your house in 3 weeks.
Well, and I look at too, for guys that build, and do dioramas, the stuff you can find probably out there, just stupid stuff. I bet you can go out there and say 55-gallon drum, and you can print it to, if you want it 8 scale, 6 scale,
Yeah.
1/35 scale.
I just
whatever
found on
you need.
Thingiverse it was 55-gallon drums and gas cans,
Yeah,
and you could just scale them up and down if you need to.
and all these guys for years have been scratch building it, and kudos to them for the work they do. But man, would that be easy? Oh, brick wall. Yeah, here, I'll just print this, and
I actually, along those lines, I actually found beakers and bottles because the ones for the Invisible Man kit?
Think of that. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. They got the seam in them, and they never look right because they got the seam on them. So some guy I think pointed me in that direction. He said, "Yeah, just print them in clear resin, and now you have a perfect seamless bottle or beaker or anything, and you could print it in color resin, clear
and
color
that's
resin."
where the scanner could come in handy. Okay, in that you could take those pieces off some of those old kits and scan them and print them in clear, or
Right.
whatever you wanted to do, or hollow them out if you want to light it up, light up a part of it, hollow it up. I don't have a problem with that aspect of the scanning at all. Okay.
Yeah.
But you're gonna see guys scanning whole kits, and then you got to wonder what's going to happen with that. Here's my Billiken Frankenstein. Hey, look at this little Frankenstein figure, and it's like a scan of the Billiken.
That I have a problem. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I think we've talked at length about that a little bit, and not to call people out, but you can't. I feel like even if you take a kit that's no longer in production and you scan it, alter it a little bit, and then sell it, that's no different than a recast, in my mind.
Yeah, I think so too. I think
just because you shrink it down or enlarge it or pose an arm, because with Blender that you can import a skeleton into a figure and repose it, and it changes all the musculature to match and all that stuff. So I scan an Aurora Frankenstein and then just move his arms up so he's doing the wave. Is that a new kit? You know what I mean? Like,
it's going to be weird. It's going to be a weird 5 years, I think, in the grand scheme of things, when everything kind of shakes out. And I think it'll actually happen sooner than 5 years. But,
oh yeah.
Any parting advice for somebody?
Research. That's the biggest thing. Research what you're getting into, and common sense. You're dealing with. And like, to go back with the safety thing, it's a lot of the resins come out of China. The cheaper ones, you can get resins that are $100 a bottle that are like for dental and casting and wax, but for our purposes the $30 a liter resin is basically fine. But it's coming out of foreign areas. They don't have the safety regulations, so the safety data sheets are a little vague. And this is new stuff. The resin's new stuff.
I hate to go to the hospital with this and say,
Yeah, well, one guy got some on his arm and didn't realize it was there, went outside and was working in the yard, and then it started burning because it was curing on his arm. And it's a thermo reaction, it's like super glue when you hit it with zip kicker. It
or like sheetrock when you have your arm encased in it.
Yeah. So
that's exactly like that.
You got to use common sense. It's chemicals. If you practice common sense like you do with any other chemical around your house, and not huff it, and wear gloves.
Not huff it, Jason.
Yeah.
It made me think of Always Sunny and Charlie huffing
Jamie,
paint.
do you think it would be common sense to take a
what? No, we're not getting into this.
Sparklers, like 1,000 sparklers, and lighting them all at once?
It wasn't 1,000 sparklers.
How many was it?
200, I think, something.
And hold them and light them all at once. Wouldn't you think there's some common sense saying this is going to get hot?
There's a difference, though, between common sense and hold my beer moment.
That was a hold my beer moment, because it was it was a hold my bottle of Jameson moment.
Yeah.
In which you didn't hold your own bottle of Jameson for a few weeks after that, I'm sure. So,
dude, it was bad. All right. Thanks for joining us, Jamie. This has been great. Yep. If anyone wants to find you or get a hold of you or have something printed, contact info, anything you want to share.
I'm on Facebook. My email's jsaj1975@gmail. Look me up on Facebook. Hit me through instant messenger. That's what most guys are doing. I have no problem helping people. I can't guarantee I'll drive to your house an hour away to show you, but you know, I've walked a lot of people through the hardships, and
Yeah.
I don't
Jason
mind
came
helping.
over and helped me set up, and he's just taking shit out of the box and throwing this out. I'm looking, going, well, what is it? What is, and it's like, he's just throwing out, okay, here you go. You're ready to go. Just do this. Just do this. And I'm like, wait, stop. What are you doing?
Yeah, the number one advice though, when you do get a printer, is the USB drive that is shipped with the printer. Just take it and throw it away.
I'm still using it.
Are you using it still?
Yeah.
See, I took it and put it on my hard drive already. Okay. So I've got the files backed up.
No, he just means that thumb drive's a piece of
and
shit.
then don't use this thumb drive for shit. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to get like 100 gig one, but I keep forgetting.
The printers only recognize, I think, like up to 32 gigabytes.
30. Oh, see, that's good to know.
Yeah, which is more than enough. I bought them in multi-packs from like Amazon. I think they're the Micro Center brand.
Yeah.
They got like 4 32 gig ones for like $20. So that way I have 2 printers, so I can have 2 running all times. And when those are printing, I can have 2 to slice files too. So it's just a constant assembly line.
Wonder who told me to get these. Yeah.
Yeah, those things are bulletproof, man. I mean, I spilled resin on mine and just wiped it off and still working.
Yeah. And I'll say this, and I would just forward Jamie's email really, but Jamie gave me sent me an email with all kinds of cool stuff to buy, and I haven't regretted buying any of it. The rubber mat. Okay. As a matter of fact, I bought a second one now.
Oh yeah, we didn't even cover that.
And what else? The UV light for hollow pieces. When you have a hollow piece, whether you've got a cure station or what, man, it's hard to get that light to get in there. So this thing will. But again, safety. If you have a UV light of any strength, get some UV safety glasses. $10 on Amazon. Jesus Christ. Yeah, there's some awesome stuff. There's an FEP changer frame that Jamie made for Jason and I that's just awesome. If you know somebody with a filament printer, they can print it for you. And yeah.
There's actually, if you have a Saturn size printer, you can print that jig on the Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
It comes in 2 parts to fit on the Saturn plate.
Okay.
But it's just cheaper to do it in filament if you can. But that thing comes in handy. And I know that's one of those riffs, religious type, like lubing your FEP sheet. The FEP jig, it's I use a bottle cap, I use a sponge, I use a folded Bible page. Everybody's got a million ways to do these things. What we've talked about here has worked for me. It's probably worked for you guys. Some of what you guys do probably work that I didn't try.
And before you change your FEP sheet, no matter what you have to do it, watch a video on them doing it, because it's, at least I wasn't going in blind. And also, for those of you not mechanically inclined that are art teachers, when they have little hex head, Allen head, whatever you want to call them, screws, okay? And they're tiny and they're Chinese. And make sure you put that wrench in those heads really good, or you're going to round them out. You're going to strip them out.
That is Screw's fault, not Screwer's fault.
No,
they're shit screws. All right, we're not having this.
They are shit screws. But wait, well, I'm not done. Shut up. So, and then the other thing, I was worried about tightening those when you put the new FEP sheet on. I was said, oh man, how do you know that these are tight enough that it doesn't leak? Well, when you start with this jig or whatever you start with, and you put that FEP sheet in, it's big. So you end up cutting the edges off. But when you start tightening the screws, this thing gets tighter. And I didn't realize that. As you tighten it up, this thing gets tight like a drum. Anybody that's ever gets one of these things, your resin vat has this FEP sheet. When you hit it, it sounds like a drum if you touch it, if you do a little with your fingernails. And if you talk into it, even you echo. Have you ever done that, Jamie? Have you ever held up and talked into it?
No, I usually hit it with a screwdriver handle or something.
Yeah. But as you tighten
I
it,
usually don't talk to clear sheets of plastic.
well, yeah, look what I'm dealing with. Okay. So but as you tighten it, it pulls this FEP sheet tight. And that's really, I think, what's holding the resin in is the fact that this sheet is tight over the edges and the resin can't get through there. So you don't have to go balls out tight when you're tightening this stuff up. And it really, I was really intimidated when I had to do it, but it really was easy. So
Yeah, people seem to make it scary when you first, I got to change my FEP for the first time. And it's like, yeah, you're literally undoing like 500 screws and then putting a piece of plastic on and then putting 500 screws back in.
Yep.
That's it, people are, it's one of those hobbies where there's a million ways to do different things and everybody's way is the only way or the right way. And if you don't do it that way, oh, geez.
And the biggest freak out I had was when I got it done, I set it in there and I dropped the screws in to screw it down. I was like, oh, shit. And I didn't want to just force them through it. So I found something, I think a paper clip I took and poked it. So the screws will go through the two holes.
Yeah, I bought a pick set from Harbor Freight for like $2.
Me too.
Yeah.
Just pop, 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 and they're done. But my problem is I'll be doing the FEP and I get all the way around to and it takes a while to do with all the screws. I get all the way around to the end and then usually the Allen key, comes out of my hand and puts a big divot in the FEP. And I got to start over. That's happened a couple of times. But
well, there are a lot of
FEPs are
pitfalls.
cheap.
Yeah,
FEPs
they
are
are
cheap.
cheap.
Yeah, but there's a lot of misinformation. I don't want to say misinformation, but
There's
you
a lot
gotta
of
wait.
urban legends, is what it's.
Yeah, that's a better
Screen
way to put it.
protectors. Screen
Yeah.
protectors is another one. You
Yeah.
gotta have a screen.
Yeah, you gotta have a screen protector. I think.
Yeah, it's.
And I don't know, Jamie. Have you had a resin spill yet?
I printed almost a year and a half without a screen protector. Yeah, and you wouldn't believe the flack I was getting for this. I mean, it was like I was drinking in church or something. You do what? I had a couple of leaks. Generally, it's a tiny pinhole, and I didn't even know it was leaking because I had a little bit on my screen. And unlike the Mars printers, these don't have a piece of glass over them. It's just a pure polarizer sheet. So if you screw that sheet up, your screen's dead. Where the Elegoo Mars, it had a sheet of glass like your cell phone does. So you could essentially clean it off pretty easily.
Mm.
And I was changing resins, I think, and I never clean out my vat, almost never, unless I'm going from like a regular resin to, I'm going on like 4 months without even taking resin out of my vat.
Jason's butt just crunched up.
Okay. Yeah, and I went to change from like gray resin to clear resin, so you got to clean it a little bit. And I pulled it up and I saw a little bit of resin on my screen, and I'm like, and this is back when you couldn't get screens. I'm like, did I just kill it? Well, I basically built a little dam around the spill. It was hardened resin with silly putty. And then I poured a little bit of IPA in there, isopropyl alcohol, and let it sit. And it softened it up to where you could take a plastic razor blade. And that's another item I think everybody should have. These plastic razor blades, I think you get like 100 razor blades and 2 handles for $6 on Amazon. And they literally are a razor blade, but it's made out of plastic. And it scraped right off without damaging my screen. And me being me was like, meh, I'll just keep going. And then it happened again. Finally, I was like, I'll get a screen protector because you couldn't find screens. They're just now coming into stock now on Amazon for what they were supposed to cost. I think they're $70, $80, but you couldn't find them for months because of the supply chain being broken. So the screen protectors are definitely a must buy.
Cool. Repeat that contact info for us one more time.
JSAJ1975 at Gmail. and then I'm on Facebook.
On Facebook.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us. This has been great, and thank you for everything you've done for the show. We're glad we found you, and we'll have you on again, and we'll have this conversation
Yeah, I'd like
again
to
and
see,
what
even if
things
it's
happen.
not me coming on, I'd like to see you guys continue with a 3D printing segment, because there's not a lot of info out there for larger, and you've probably noticed this on YouTube. Everything's miniature based.
Yep.
There's very little
Mhm.
larger scale based videos out there, and the ones that are seem to have turned into a giant infomercial. So
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Well, we'll think about that.
It'd
I
be
think
nice to have
there's a place for that.
somebody out there talking about the larger scale, 1/5,
Cool.
1/6, 1/7, 1/8 stuff. So
Yeah, absolutely. All right, have a great night, man, and we'll
all
talk
right,
to you
man.
later.
Thanks for having me.
See ya.
Hey.
Say goodbye, Scott.
Goodbye.
Oh,
Thanks,
God,
Thanks,
you're
Jamie.
so rude.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jamie, for coming on. Thanks for all your help. Jamie has helped us a shit ton.
Ton.
He's also printed us some stuff.
Yeah.
With his FDM printers. So again, thank you a ton. We owe you big time.
We do.
The guy is just, he likes helping people. He's a nice guy.
Isn't that
You know,
weird?
he looks familiar, but I don't know that I've ever met him.
Isn't it weird to find someone that likes helping people?
Yes, it is.
It's very strange, especially in these parts. Next up, Todd Powell of Escape Hatch Hobbies.
Yep. First time I've ever talked to Todd.
I know, me too.
Messaged Todd a bunch of times. Here's a funny thing. Todd had a website at one point, and he interviewed me for, as a producer when I got going with the Moohead models.
Okay.
And he interviewed me, and what he did basically was he sent me a list of questions, and I don't know if it was a Word file or whatever, and then I just answered them and sent it back, and that was the interview. And look how far we've come now.
Look how far we've come.
Here we are with Todd Powell, Escape Hatch Hobbies.
And we're back with Todd Powell of Escape Hatch Hobbies. And Scott's already laughing at me. How are you, Todd?
I'm good. How are you, Jason?
It's good. I'm great. Scott, how are you?
I'm great. If I can get through another hour or so of you mumbling through this will be great.
All right, cool. Todd, thanks for joining us. We're just doing this is our 3D printing primer episode. And we wanted to talk to a producer who has kind of incorporated into their business, into what they're doing. And so thanks for reaching out to us and kind of going through this with us. We won't spend that much time on everything, but I want to know what you're doing. Scott wants to know what you're doing and how it's changed your life, how it's made things better, how it's made things worse. And just give us a quick backstory of Escape Hatch Hobbies.
A backstory of Escape Hatch Hobbies. Okay, well, I started up the company about 4 years ago when Tom Parker died. He had cult of personality. He was his big business was replacement parts for plastic model kits. I loved it. I'd always enjoyed what Tom did, but I didn't do it myself very much because I didn't really want to challenge Tom. But when Tom passed, I went ahead and jumped into the business, and so I now have 25 replacement sets that I sell, and I also do some some full kits. But let me show you how digital is already affecting this and how it's changed the way I do things. Now, first off, I should say Rob Madison, about, I don't know, early this year, late last year, he got in touch with me with his Maddie the Mad Monster modeler, which you guys have talked about. He asked me if I wanted to produce it. I said, great. And he was introducing me to Elegoo, the Mars 2. No, he had the Mars, the Elegoo Mars. Okay, now I'm going to ask you guys real quick. A year ago, had either one of you heard of Elegoo?
I had. Scott, I don't think had.
I had not, no.
I hadn't. I hadn't heard of Elegoo. I hadn't heard of Frozen. I hadn't heard of EPAX. I think I'd heard of Anycubic. I used to work in a paleo lab where the boss was big into 3D printers, and he spent lots of time and resources getting these big filament printers. I mean, these things were big enough to print, like dinosaur bones. I mean, something this big, but they look like they were made out of weed eater string.
Mm-hmm.
They were a nice basic shape. And I thought, well, that's not going to work for me. it was nice that we had something we could sand forever and make it look like, you could mirror image. If you had a right bone, you could mirror image it and make the left bone. And I just did that backward. I know my right and my left. Anyway, but Rob was the one who introduced me to the idea that really these printers have come a long way. I started doing some research, and now, of course, I've got 4 of them. And this is just since February that I've gotten these operating. But anyway, I was talking to Rob, I remember, and he was saying, he thought maybe I should go ahead and just print some of the stuff that he was doing. He was got these little itty bitty pieces of glass, jars in this kit. And I was honestly, wounded. My pride. Man, I'm a caster. I know what I'm doing. I can make a silicone mold. You send me the stupid pieces of whatever they are, and I'll make a mold for it. And they're a pain in the ass. And these little matty figures that come with it, they've got these brittle toes. Freaking things keep breaking. And where I live in particular, it's cold. You print something this big, and it's got a toe this big, you break toes.
Yeah.
So I finally said, Rob, I've got my own little Mars 2 now. Mars 2 Pro is actually what I have. Can you just send me those files and let me see how this works? And understand, I was making these little legs one at a time. In a mold that had like 6 pieces in it. And, of those 6 pieces, 2 would come out with a broken finger, a broken toe, whatever. So he sent me this, and I realized that I could print, like, can you see that at all?
Yeah.
I could print like 30 of these things in 2 hours, and the toes were all there. And, I could clip them off with my little clippers, and then I started messing with it some more. I found out about Jasper Anderson, the sculptor, digital sculptor. He just on his own, he did this little replacement head. There it is, my bread and butter. He did a replacement head for the Haunted Manor Gravedigger. This looks more like the caretaker from the Haunted Manor. It's a really nice little head. And he sent me a digital print, something he printed himself, and I made a silicone mold. It's a good mold, and I've made quite a few of these in this mold, and great, But still, even if I'm moving nicely, I only did one. I didn't do a gang mold. I just did one mold, and actually I made a couple. But still, at most, I'm putting out from each mold five of these a day. But then I asked Jasper if he wanted to do a Phantom of the Opera, a Cheney Phantom of the Opera for the Play It Again Sam kit, the classic Haunted Manor kit, and he did it for me. And I said, just send me the STL. He sent it to me, and I can now got this nice little Cheney Phantom head, and I printed 40 of them, again, in 2 hours. All right. So when it comes to small stuff, my life is much easier because I don't have to mix all this stuff and I do have to deal with the fact that these printers are really fiddly. Still, 40 of these and 40 masks, 2 hours, I had them all. And then I thought, well, the Polar Lights Phantom, my best seller of all time is this James Bama style Phantom head that Chris Wooten sculpted for me back in 2010. I've sold ridiculous numbers of those, about 500 of them, because the Polar Lights Phantom has the worst head, possibly of any styrene kit ever. But the rest of it's pretty cool. Well,
Scott, would you agree with that? Is that a bad head?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, it's horrible. I've got it around here somewhere. I wish I could show you. But the thing is, what occurred to me was, well, just somebody occurred it to me, was I've got a 3D printer, and 3D printers aren't confined to the size that you got it. So I took it and I blew it up about 1.7 times. And this is actually a little too big. I've got another one that fits, and I'll slice it off, to get, because the Polar Lights Phantom, among other things, has no neck. But I'll reconfigure it in a little epoxy putty, and this is going to become a Polar Lights Phantom head. And again, I don't know if you can see it, but Jasper's a hell of a sculptor. And so now I've got a really nice Cheney head that I can, make available for this Polar Lights kit before too long. The kit's been out of production for 20 years, so who knows? But I'll sell enough to be worth what I already have in hand, and I will just make the regular silicone mold out of this. I still don't know digital sculpture.
Cost-wise, what's the difference between traditional casting and molding versus so far what you've found out with 3D printing?
Well, cost-wise, when you're at the place where I am right now, which I imagine is the place where you guys are too, since you started just really a couple months after I did, 3D printing is the most expensive thing I've ever done in my life. But that's just because I'm kind of an ass when it comes to this stuff. I was an English major. Scott made his living actually using his hands and doing things, but I spent 20 years typing, so I had a lot to learn. But
That's what I'm doing now, Todd, by the way.
typing.
That's what I'm doing now. I went back to the same place, and they have me doing computer. So, but yeah,
Cool. The thing is, I was when I got into this hobby, I really threw myself into it because it was just fascinating to me, and it was fun. Mostly, it was fun, and I learned how to make molds with a lot of help from some long distance friends. William Paquette helped me a ton. Rob Rotundi is ridiculous. He was my guru for about 6 months, answering question after question. And a lot of what I learned making molds then, it applies to these things, So you learn how to angle things. You learn that the top of the head is not necessarily the top of something when you're considering a mold. That's not necessarily the high point. And the same is true of these things in a slightly different way. I mean, like I've got this, where's a great one? This morning monster thing right here. And I have these chain links all over it. That right there is not something I would ever want to do in a silicone mold. Every single one of these loops is going to catch silicone in it. And I got to do some kind of trick to get it out and to get it not to catch a bubble and all that stuff. But still, the basic knowledge is there. So here's a mold I did. This is what? I don't know, maybe $10 worth of material. And it took me 30 minutes maybe to set it up. And hopefully it'll work. The castings that I'll get out of it. The resin is cheaper than this 3D resin. This 3D the resin that, of course, resin prices are way up. You can get 10 gallons of the material that I'm using. After it's been shipped to you, it's a little more than $500, which is a lot of money. But still, I got this 1 kilogram bottle of 3D resin, and that's about $36 from Soraya Tech, and that's actually a really good price for this stuff. But when I'm moving right, when I'm in a groove, first off, when I'm doing something like my little phantom head, and I print 40 of those at once, okay, my total invested material there is, I don't know, less than $5 to print 40 of these things. And there's not a single dud. They're all fine. And I didn't spill any of it, hopefully. If I'm doing the job right for projects like this, it makes a lot more sense to me. And this is a solid piece. I didn't hollow it out or anything. These morning monsters, this kind of stuff, I'm still figuring stuff out. I'm messing with my settings all the time. But still, it takes my machine 15, 20 hours to print these things. But you put it to work at 5 p.m. and it goes 20 hours, 15 hours until it's done. And you look around and you realize you've accumulated quite a few of them and you didn't even know it was happening. I got the flex plate, this thing rises up out of the tank. I come in, pop it off, put it back on, make sure my resin level's good, hit print again. There we go. What's wasted so far is just what I don't know. Yeah. And there's a lot I don't know. And I definitely am playing catch up in a lot of ways. I mean, with my crowd, I'm in my mid 50s. The guys who are looking for the Aurora stuff, they still don't have too many options. There aren't too many people out there doing Boris Karloff digitally. So I'm in pretty good shape right now. But some of these guys who've been whipping out this Warhammer stuff and the Loot Studios and things like that, I wish I could go spend a couple days watching what they do, which is the same way I felt about Mark Brokaw, 4 years ago. I would have loved to go and just hang out in his shop and see how he makes molds. I still would. Yeah. But
would I?
Yeah. But it's a learning curve, but it's not as steep as it was 2 months ago.
that's probably the big thing I noticed, and we'll talk more about this with Jamie too, is the learning curve is very, very steep. And if you don't have that, like I've built my 2 gaming computers, 3 gaming computers, and it's kind of like that where you're adjusting settings one step at a time to see if something works. And if you don't have that kind of brain to be like, okay, I have enough patience to sit here and fiddle with this for a little while and then wait 20 hours to see if it works and then go back and adjust something to try, it's a different mindset. And I'm not saying there's a right and a wrong, because you have your guys that are like, I just want a model kit and I don't want to have to do this. And I just want this. And that's fine. For people like me, it's a whole second hobby. And it's like the slicing software where you have to build your supports and stuff. To me, it's almost like it's like a OCD game where I'm trying to figure out and push buttons to make something work. And I like that. It gets annoying after the 6th time of something not working, but it's not for everybody. And I go back, Larry Brackney said that a long time ago. It's not for everyone. It's not as easy as you think. Because when people see, could you hold up that supported one again that you had, just so that kind of that people see when like you have to. That's how it goes. Talk about that for a second.
Well, yeah, I'm happy to talk about that, because the truth is, what you're saying, that's right. That's my opportunity right now. The fact that there are more and more people with their Saturns or their Mars 2s or their Sonic Mighty 4Ks with a stack of who knows what on top of them. People get sick of these things in a hurry. Now, 10 years from now, these things are going to be as easy to operate as a microwave and probably just as common. But right now, I've got an opportunity, because I've got a 5th printer coming, and this thing is a monster. Right now, I've got an opportunity that I'll still pay the sculptors. My same job I've always had as a producer. I pay somebody to make something for me. He just sends it to me a different way. And then I have an opportunity to print it out myself or hire out the printing to somebody else if that's what I feel like doing. And then I've got my product that I finish up, trim off all these supports, and I can also offer it in multiple sizes if I want to. Here's 2 of the Frankenberries. This is the 75 millimeter. He's going to come on the market soon. And I mail it out. That's my opportunity right now as a producer. But yeah, supports. And man, just so many lessons to supports. I'm using ChitUbox. Are you guys using Chit?
Yep.
Yeah. When you build supports, it's just like, again, when I was doing a mold the way I did a mold, and I learned most of my mold making was done in the Paleo Lab, where I had to consider not just what I could work with, but what everybody who I worked with and who would be working there for the next 10 years was going to be able to handle. But, as far as escape hatch goes, I'm about 3/4 of the staff, and my wife is the rest of it. And she does most of my prep work. So she's been learning all this stuff about 3D prints and how to prep them.
Oh man!
And here's the thing, yeah. Don't you wish Jamie get in on that?
Yeah.
See,
that
the thing
never
is,
happen.
Never.
Never.
Well,
You're a lucky man.
Yeah, I am. The work that every single one of these stupid little strands represents time that I spent finding a place on this sculpture that had. I'm not going to get too big into the technicality of the stuff that I had to learn about islands and the really horrible mistake it is to overlook a support, and how you can wreck things. But I wanted to, I'm tempted to use auto supports. I don't have the best computer for doing this. So I started doing manual supports. I learned how to do them by watching a YouTube channel, 3D Printing Pro. That guy, he's got some great tips on this stuff. Yeah. And he's got a thing called insane support settings. And I looked at that, adjusted things, trying to learn. The point is, when you end up with something like this, you want to be able to come into those fingers, and usually I do this a little bit warmed up, but it's best if you could just kind of peel it off.
Yeah.
Because and so you got to use a small support there, or you got to know what the support will hold, because this thing's actually upside down and it's been put on a sheet of plastic and then pulled off. I still don't understand how these little things are holding some of it. You know, I mean, what? It makes no sense.
And I think this question I'm going to ask is for both of you, because you're both traditional molders. In terms of time of building a mold versus doing supports in a computer, what's the difference? Like, how is one easier, one harder? They both different things time-wise. What do you think, Scott?
Well, I think it's easier to sit at a computer and put supports in than it ever is claying something up and putting the box around it. Not that that's hard work, but you just sit back, listen to music. Yeah, I'll put one here. I'll put one here. So yeah, it's a totally different animal, for sure. And I want to interject on one thing. Todd said he prints 40 of those heads at once. And keep in mind, once you cast 40 things in a silicone mold, you start to get a lot of mold. It starts to degrade the mold.
Yeah.
I don't know how many Todd usually gets out of a piece, but usually around 50 is your magic number when you start to get stuff. And even on especially small pieces like that, I'm sure you get little chunks here and there that, this little chunk by the ear, I'll have to clean all those up now. So the nice thing about the digital in that case is, like he said, 40 of them come up flawless and you're good to go. Snip and ship,
Right.
Right. So, but yeah, so as far as molding, a difference, this is cleaner and hey, you could take your laptop into your house. You don't even have to be in your shop and do it.
Well, and if I'm thinking in terms of like this again, Morning Monster, if I'm trying to clay this up, first thing I'm going to do is cuss at somebody for giving me these chain links. But then what I got to do is I got to consider, okay, how would I do this? I'm going to be trying to put little vents all through all this stuff, and I'm going to be gluing things on there, or glue, and I'm going to be lucky if it doesn't fall off or stick to my finger. The worst that happens is that I overlook a support and it screws up the print. But generally what happens is, I inspect these things from every angle before I call it good. So, I'm not really likely to end up with that big a problem. So it's easier. And yeah, for sure, it's this part of the job when you're just using your laptop, you can do it in your bed, right before you go to bed at night. You don't have to be in a specific place to do it. You don't have to have the super glue and the light that you're focusing and maybe the magnifiers and all this stuff. It's a trade-off. Lots of people, I'm sure you hear this all the time. People who are saying, "I like the old way. I like clay sculptures, and that's all I want to hear about." It's a different animal, and I'm not painting the Sistine Chapel. What I'm doing here is I'm making toys for middle-aged men. So. Yep. This is a nice new tool to have. I'm not giving up making the old-fashioned molds. I'm not giving up working with clay sculptors. But although I will note that there are fewer of them all the time. The few that are left who are still interested in working with garage kits, they're busy as hell. Yeah. I've been waiting 2 years for a couple projects to get done from great guys. I know they're going to do a wonderful job. They're just really busy.
Yeah.
And there's not many other alternatives. All the other guys have either retired or moved on. They've moved to digital. Meanwhile, there are thousands of digital sculptors. And then you got a whole new bunch of things to watch out for, because you don't know any of these people and they don't know your concerns, and they might be in, I don't know, Zimbabwe, and they might sell you a digital sculpture they'll never send you, but who knows?
Yeah. There is a lot of pushback I've noticed from garage kit guys. And I kind of, one of the reasons I want to do this episode is to kind of alleviate some of those fears. I don't think it's going to replace garage kits. I think it's a new way of doing certain things. And I think it's an opportunity to do things better sometimes even, and to open up the audience to people that never knew we even existed. And I don't get the pushback. I kind of do, because it's your traditional, it's a very, hobbies are protected. They always are. Bringing in new people, everyone's like, "Oh, we're the old crowd. We got to do it my way." And I think if people can kind of just go, all right, there's a place for this. And I think exactly what you're doing fits. Making 40 heads at once is a hell of a lot easier than doing 1 or 5 in a day and having to redo that mold after 40.
Right.
And I think it's a bright future. I really do. And I think it's going to bring a lot of people back. And I think it's going to invigorate some people who might find stuff. Like, I'm finding stuff I've never like thought would be kits in the digital realm, you know, and I'm on the younger end of this. And so a lot of stuff I like, nobody likes. And I can find that one guy that made a digital sculpt of it, and there it is. And I can print it out, and it's good for me.
Oh, if I see one more Harry Potter fucking digital sculpt, I'm going to kill myself. But like you said, it's where it is. And Todd, I want to ask your thoughts on this, and this is kind of where I am with it. First of all, you can incorporate both. And I know you talked about your box art Hulk that's forthcoming. You're going to cast the base in traditional resin. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the rest will be digital, but and that makes sense to me. You know, because that's a piece that you can pour in minutes and pop out maybe 3 or 4 in an hour if you had to. Okay.
Right.
Where if you were printing that, because of the size and because of the angle you have to put it at, you're probably looking at an 8-hour print, and he'd be forever. Where with the rest of the kit, he can put multiple parts on the bed. He can't with that. And if I'm wrong, tell me. But that's kind of what I figure your thought process is.
You're exactly right. I don't have.
Yeah. So there's incorporation that can be done.
This is the base for the Morning Monster right here, and it's just an old-fashioned, silicone mold resin casting. So yeah, and you're right. I can make them forever. The mold took me minutes to make. So true.
And that goes back to I don't have the name off the top of my head, but I've gotten now 2 kits, one from Stan Arts and one from I can't remember. But again, it has resin parts and it has 3D printed parts. Things that are like things that you could never ever cast because they would break, like you said. Like, this is from Ed Bradley, and they're in here. These 2 little antenna that are for the grasshopper guy, that you couldn't mold those ever.
Well, it's not the future of the hobby. It's the now. You know, just because these young people who are doing it are not doing Bela Lugosi kits, they're still doing the basics. They're still buying the kits, getting the kits one way or another. They're building the kits and they're painting the kits. It's the same thing. It's the hobby. We don't whittle model airplanes like our fathers did, or our grandfathers in your case, Jason. And our kids do not build, the universal Frankenstein monster. Things have moved on, but it does continue.
I think, for stuff like quarter scale busts and 1/6 scale figures, I think it's gonna be hard for this to replace it as far as for a production. If you're gonna sell them as a production thing, and even your Morning Monster there, that's on the big end of that. Because of how long that takes, your production is limited to, now you've got 4 printers, but if it's someone starting out with 1 printer, you got to look at that and say, if I got silicone molds, I can make 5 a day. Now, granted, again, because of the constraints you would have silicone molding that, this is really the best and only way to go. But, when I look at if you took just a basic Jeff Yeager Frankenstein, like your Glenn Strange kit, you'd be forever printing that. And where you could probably, I don't know how many you can make in a day, but, you could probably, I'm sure, pump out 3 or 4 a day if you pumped it really well. And, it would take you a whole day to print one of those, I would imagine. Those are Aurora scale. I'm sorry, that's not 1/6 scale, but the point I'm trying to make,
it takes a long time.
Yeah, it's not going to replace things like that. Okay, but I think you're going to see a lot of mix. I do think you're going to see a lot of mix.
Certainly, stuff like George's wall hangers, George Stevenson Blackheart models. That stuff. Yeah, the 3D printers are not going to make sense for that. This big printer that I've got coming would probably print 5 of them at once. Of my Frankenstein, my Strange Frankenstein, but then my LCD is going to give out, and I got all kinds of problems. So no, yeah, absolutely. The traditional resin casting is staying in the mix while I'm in. I've got a few years left before I hang it up. So yeah, it's not going away.
I think my last question: how do you feel about, let's say you have a sculpture and you want to sell it traditionally cast one, but what if someone wants the STL to print it themselves? Would you be open to selling a resin kit for those who want a resin kit and a file for people who would want a file?
I'm still thinking hard about that, but for now, my inclination is the STLs do not get out of my control.
Yeah.
Because all it takes is just one person to put it on Thingiverse and you're done. It's a can of worms right now. We'll see how things evolve.
Okay,
Certainly things like the subscription services that are building Loot Studios and that kind of stuff, where people are subscribing and they get something every month. That's cool, but I don't even understand that because they're putting out these packages like 50 sculptures every month.
Yeah.
And it's great stuff, but
I think they have teams of guys working. That's what I really think.
Yeah, and do you suppose they're like sharing profits? I mean, how do you pay for all that?
Yeah, I think that's probably what it is.
Man, certainly this is meant as no disrespect to any digital sculptor out there, but these clay sculptors are used to getting X amount of dollars for a clay sculpt, and I think they think that, hey, a digital sculpt's going to fetch that same dollar amount, and I don't know that it is in today's world. The stuff I'm buying for $15 a piece, I'm like blown away by. So it's, I'm on a Patreon for $5 a month. You have access to like 300 files, and it's like, and the guy's got 800 followers. So he's raking in $4,000 a month, but wow, how do you get to that point? And then he says, yeah, don't sell the STL, but you can print and sell as many as you want. And I'm like, what the hell?
All right, Todd, thanks for joining us. This has been great. I hope you kind of alleviated some fears of other producers, maybe to dip their toe in there. Again, thanks for trying new stuff, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a ball. So I look forward to watching the episode.
Where can people find you?
EscapeHatchHobbies.com is my website. My webmaster is Harry Spock Malone from the Clubhouse. He has made my business. I cannot thank the guy enough. He does it. Oh man, he has a ball with that stuff. But you can also find me on Facebook, Escape Hatch Hobbies or Todd Powell.
Cool.
Look for me there.
And thanks for the donation for the Taurus.
Yep.
Oh, I got to give Rob credit for that. That came from Rob Madison. He is, as you say, the greatest guy in the world.
Yeah, he is.
He is. But I'll send something else your way sometime.
Cool. So. Excellent.
I'll have a great night. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for joining us, man.
Take care, Todd.
Bye.
Thanks.
Okay, great. I think Todd has shown people the way, actually. He's using it as a tool for where it works, and where it doesn't, he's still doing his casting. So I think there's a lot of good information in there. And again, thanks to both of our guests for coming on. We really do appreciate it.
And that Morning Monster, that's a prime example of you could never cast those chains on that thing.
Never.
You could, but you go nuts.
Well, yeah, it'd be a pain in the ass. All right, emails and corrections. Scott, do we have any corrections? Did we fuck anything up last time? I don't even remember.
Man, I don't even know.
Yeah, nah, we're good. Go ahead. You read Phil's email.
Oh, may I? So, as always, Phil emailed us and sent us some photos after the last episode. And we're going to start this off because I get to read it because of the way this starts off. Hey, guys. Another one under your belts. Keep them coming. Jason, I'm a big dog lover, and I say to you, you die.
So hold on. So he's wishing me dead. Wishing me dead?
I wouldn't know. He didn't say I wish you died.
No, he just tells me to die. All right. Well, continue.
If you're going to hate on dogs, yes. I bet you are afraid of dogs, just like our friend Kurt.
Okay. Stop right there. I am not afraid of dogs. And I caught so much dog flack from the dog.
I know
people.
Cipriano's never coming on again,
Man,
and
all
it's
right.
his
I
fault.
get it. All right.
I'll have Tony on without
Okay.
him.
I am not afraid of dogs. Here is my evidence. This is me passed out with 2 Great Danes.
That's great. Those were your bestiality days when you would drink a lot. Okay.
And they just have their way with me.
Were
yes.
you naked under the covers there? I just
no. Don't think so.
I bet you woke up sore the next day.
I did because of the night before.
I bet you did.
I think that's the night I threw up out of the car window on the way home in the morning. Anyway, go ahead. Not afraid of dogs.
Yeah. That's called passed out. That's not called afraid of dogs.
I'm not afraid of dogs.
I'll tell you what. If I was you, I would have been afraid of dogs when I woke up and saw those 2 big giant dogs on me, because I'd have been saying, what did these dogs do to me last night?
I was chased by an Irish setter as a kid. And that scared the shit out of me. But I'm not afraid of dogs. Had dogs.
So now you don't like the Irish. Great. Hold on.
That's a long running story.
I'll bet you it is. Can I finish this?
Go ahead.
Great. You die. Sorry, I wanted to pick up where we left off. You die. I bet you are afraid of dogs, just like our friend Kurt. Truth be told, my dog Cooper, a golden retriever, I think you would love him. I know he would love you. He loves everybody. Yeah, so Kurt don't like it because the dog goes up and puts his nose in his crotch. And I'm thinking to myself, what a good dog. Unlike our poor cat Mingus, who I just love the Mingus with the dingus, who we lost to cancer about a year ago, who would run into our closet and shook with fear at the sound of all the illegal fireworks that people fired off around us. Cooper is still able to tolerate the fireworks. I do agree with you that barking dogs, who their lazy human owners are so inconsiderate of others and let their dogs bark on and on, do bother my sanity. Well, it's nice to know something does. We used to have neighbors that would leave their dog barking all day while they went off for the day to work or whatever. But I digress. That's right, Phil.
Okay.
Get back.
Can I respond to this part real quick? So a lot of the people, and I even got text messages from people after watching the
That's awesome. Anybody want his number?
Yeah, no.
Here.
No. Put that away. So they were blaming it on the owners. And my response to that is, yes, a shitty owner will have a shitty dog that I will hear. If a shitty owner has a hamster, I will never know about it.
Great. That's your logic, huh?
It is.
So we're right back to you hating dogs.
No, I don't hate dogs. I hate loud dogs. Let's do this. And when Phil showed me the picture of his dog, the first thing I thought was, oh my God, all of that fur all over the place. How can you be a modeler and have fur floating around your house all the time?
Have you looked under your lips?
Yeah, but it's not on my model kits.
How do you know?
Have you ever sat on... Okay, we got to keep going. Go ahead.
Your UFO story. What were you drinking that night? I do believe, though. Love that Yosemite Sam figure. It's nice to see some nice, fresh sculpted subject matter, namely cartoon
did you just
characters.
mumble? Oh, boy. Brr, brr. Not so easy, is it? Stupid bastard. God.
How does stupid that? All right, hold on. I'll read it like Jason would.
No.
Okay. Love that Yosemite Sam figure. It's nice to see some nice, fresh subject matter, namely cartoon characters, being produced as figure kits. Right, Scotty? Righty, Phil. The Robert Trock interview. He does some great bases and bashing of figures. Personally, I don't care for some of his dioramas. The ones like his diorama of Miracles. Sorry, Robert, but those are just like Transformers movies. Too many figures, too much going on. Well, I think that's the purpose of it, though. But
I think there's some beef starting now with Phil and Robert. Let's go.
Phil, Robert's in pretty good shape. So I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I like your less complicated dioramas like the King Kong versus Godzilla, my favorite kaiju movie. I'm happy for you that you have the space for those monster dioramas. No pun intended. Most of the kaiju monsters that I've built over the years, though, I like them. Most of those I built for others. In honor of Robert's love for kaiju, I've attached photos for the listeners' gallery. So at the end, you can see some of Phil's kaiju work. Kaiju?
Mhm.
Kaiju.
Kaiju.
Thanks for the tips on what you use for building your base work. Jason, I commend you for staying awake during Robert and Scotty's comic conversation. Yeah, whatever, Phil. Okay. Just because you can't read. Hey, I stay awake through these long Phil letters. Okay. Concerning an email from a fellow modeler who poo-pooed B-movie models, he neglected to tell us what figures in particular he would like to see made as figure kits. Some that he has interest in, maybe some that we might not care for, and maybe do some poo-pooing of our own. If he would send in for the viewers gallery some photos of kits he's built so we can see what kind of characters he likes, maybe some sculptors and kit producers might see them and make it happen for him and other modelers.
Wow, beef all over the place. So,
Man, Phil was feisty this night.
Yeah, he's feisty this time.
Well, he's getting ready to move, so that's really stressful.
Yeah.
So
Logan Torres has the next email, and he's talking about how 3D model printing might destroy Sideshow and NECA and some of the pre-painted companies. From my perspective, Sideshow is a big grift operation using substandard materials, rotocasting their statues, and charging a premium price, while you can get a solid 3D model of 50% less from printing. The hollow resin model method Sideshow is using is the same method they use in those cheap garden statues. My mother has a few, and they broke easy. Maybe the same factory. And Sideshow will eventually outprice itself. Maybe Garage Kits can have revenge after all. The funny thing about this email is the day I got this, I was reading on one of the statue forums a huge thread of it was like 200 or more comments of people getting out of the statue collecting hobby and why people were leaving it. And it wasn't, I think 3D printing has something to do with that, but they said it's the shipping prices. And they are outpricing themselves. And when one of those big statues comes in, you're paying almost double because it's costing to ship that thing as much as it is to buy it, which now worries me about something I have coming if it's going to outprice.
And especially the XM pieces, I think, come from overseas.
Yeah, and that's what they're saying. The overseas shipping was ridiculous.
And so, yeah, that stuff definitely. As far as the hollow casting, it's a tough call because Sideshow isn't traditionally casting resin pieces. You know, they're porcelain. They're mass produced, just like a Precious Moments statue or any other statue you would buy from a gift shop. It's the only way to even keep it, I don't want to say affordable because some of that Sideshow stuff is really expensive. But I can't imagine what it would be if it was solid. Okay.
Yeah.
And of course it's going to break if you drop it or put it outside. So I mean, I get where he's going with it, but I don't necessarily fault them for.
I don't either. I think that
casting something.
I think they're doing it the only way they can feasibly do it.
The problem is,
worth
I
it?
think their problem is size. But again, a lot of the superhero collectors want quarter scale stuff.
What they want.
And so when you put a quarter scale piece, you package it in styrofoam so it won't get damaged in shipping, and then put a box in it around it.
And have
You're
to
getting a
engineer
huge
it so
box.
you can ship it.
Okay. It's going to weigh, it's going to have some heft. But understand, UPS and the post office are pricing more by package size than they are actual weight.
Yep.
So as soon as your package goes bigger than 12 inches on any dimension on a box, it changes the price.
Yep.
For the post office. So again, I have a zillion Bowen pieces, and even some of those boxes are huge. But the Bowen pieces were more like 1/8 scale. You know, they weren't 1/6, they weren't 1/4. So you guys keep wanting that quarter scale stuff. Sideshow's playing to their market.
Yep.
And I can't blame them for that.
I can't either. All right, our next email is from Greg, and we've learned how to say his name. It's not Domian, it's Damian. So Greg Damian sent us a really cool email. And this has, well, the first part does. The second half has nothing to do with model kits, but this is one of those times I'm going to be self-indulgent for you and I because this interests both of us. So I'll read you the first part. Hey guys, another great show with lots of interesting and wonderful stuff emanating from your craziness. Maybe you guys need to hit the road and do some comedy clubs. I'll kill them halfway there. Well, at least you guys can make me laugh. Love the interview with Robert. Funny that you know someone's work and have seen it, but have never known who did it or their background stories. To me, it is one of the gems of your podcast, introducing followers to important people in the hobby who, unless you have been in the hobby for a long time, would not have known about them, or that a handful of big hitters such as Terry Webb, David Fisher, Mike Parts, etc., all of them. One of the main reasons I enjoy your podcast. Keep it up. Would love to see Robert finish that gargantuan diorama. Love the idea he had of letting other painters complete a specific kit within that dial. Looks like a Tom Sawyer deal to me. It is total whitewashing the fence. Tom Sawyer. That's totally what that is. But I like the idea too. So he didn't want me to read this part, and he just kind of shared this with me, but I really want to show these pictures because they're awesome. And Greg took these pictures, which is even cooler. So I'm going to get into this. Bear with my mumbling. Now, this next dissertation is for Scott, and you may not want to post this part on your show, but fine if you do. Disco Demolition, I was also there. I did not go for the disco. So as any lifelong Sox fan, going to a doubleheader to see two games for the price of one was always top on the list. At the time, I did not put anything into the Disco Demolition Steve Dahl was planning. Pretty much what he was doing at a lot smaller locations, destroying disco records, was par for him, so he didn't think the ballpark thing was going to be that big. Until I was on my way to the park. Luckily, I did not drive and took the bus to the game. As we transitioned through subsequent stops, more and more younger folks got on the bus carrying records. Seemed that if you brought a disco record to be destroyed, you could get into the park for 99 cents. By the time
I think it was 98, actually.
Was it 98?
Well, because the loop was FM 90,
Oh, there you go.
97.9.
Yep.
Yeah.
By the time we got to the park, the bus was filled, and the outside of the park was crawling with thousands of ne'er-do-wells with disco records slithering into the park. As was the case back in the late 70s, the Sox were not a big draw, so buying a general admission ticket and then wandering my way down to the field level boxes was simple. So Scott's story of what happened that night was pretty spot on, so I won't go into any more detail other than along with about 15,000 other Sox fans, I was sitting, dodging, ducking, flying disco records between being thrown by 40,000 moronic motherfuckers during the first game. Can't tell you how many cherry bombs went off, or the guy climbing the outside of the foul pole from the second deck. I had brought my camera to the game to shoot the action since I was so close to the field. I did manage to capture some interesting shots I've attached to the letter. Photo number 1 is pre-game with Harry Carey interviewing Lorelei, the Loop Girl, along with Steve Trout, the starting pitcher from the game. Seems he was very interested in Lorelei.
Oh, I can't blame him. Back then,
yeah.
She was beautiful. And for all you Cubs fans out there, Harry Carey started with the White Sox.
Yep.
A lot of people don't know that, but he started with the White Sox.
Photo 2 is Steve Dahl along with Lorelei being driven to home plate between games to set off the big explosion of disco records. Lorelei seems quite happy to be there by the big smile on her face. Photo
It's
3,
also Gary Meyer next to him.
Is that Gary
I'm
Meyer
pretty
in there?
sure.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
Third photo is Lorelei being dragged out of the Jeep to meet all of her fans. Me thinks that might be a little fear on her face now. It
Yeah.
totally does. Photo 4 is the melee on the field. Melee. Did you say melee or melee?
Melee, you moron.
Yeah, melee. There's some people that say melee. So the photo 4 is the
mouth mumbling moron. It's
That's a Steve
melee.
Austin thing, melee. The photo is the melee on the field. Notice Andy Fran Usher running out of the field, off the field with third base in his hand. These idiots were taking everything they could off the field. Saw one guy about 30 minutes into the scrum walking around wearing a large piece of sod over his head like some sort of gladiatorial armor.
Yeah. And they talk about the Capitol riots.
Dude,
These people were nuts.
Photo 5 is the wonderful Chicago police coming to calm things down about a half hour into this bullshit. Photo 6 is owner of Bill Veck looking like, what the fuck just happened? A point to be made. Bill was known for his stunts to draw people to the park, and he got reamed about this one. But it was his son who planned the organization, or planned and organized this, and unfortunately the media tried to make him the bad guy in all this. Not this time. Another point Scott made was that there were no cell phones back then, so parents did not know what was happening to their kids and who went to the park that night. I didn't get home until 3 hours after this ended. It was such a mess getting out of the area. My parents were livid, but there was nothing they could do. So that was from Greg. I thought that was pretty cool. I love those pictures. And being, it's a Chicago thing. Disco Demolition was huge. From Marty, Neuro. I'm a bit older than you two. Norm Saunders was an illustrator I simply loved. This is because we had no idea who Norm Saunders was at first, and then we figured it out. My father was a pulp collector, so these illustrations are very much a part of my childhood. But it was the Batman 1966 gum cards that really drew my attention as a youngster. Here are a few examples, and as I said, I wish some sculptor would do Norm Saunders' version of the Catwoman. So we do have some Norm Saunders.
Batman?
Did I say Batman? Batman.
Yes.
Do you want me to read it again?
Please no.
Because every time you point stuff out like that,
I'm Batman.
I'm going to read it again.
Fuck me.
And that is episode 27. Scott, anything you want to add?
No. Yes. No. Yes. Don't forget your favorite cartoon character. If you want to win the little Slag Brothers resin printed, I'll send those out to you.
Cool. All right, everybody have a great couple weeks. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
But all right. Emails. I'll wait till you're done drinking and jingling your ice everywhere.
Thanks, because
You're reading that first email.
whatever. I got to take drugs to even get through this section the way you mumble through it. So
Okay, dude. There's the blooper at the end.
what? Let me find Phil's fucking letter.
All
Okay,
right.
here we go.